Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody around the world, digital health leaders alike. Welcome to the September edition of the HITLAB Digital Health Symposium, where we review the latest in digital health evidence and we look at various types of data that are coming in from around the ecosystem in the US, around the globe, to see what is actually being adopted in digital healthcare. My name is Stan Kichnowski. I'm chairman of HITLAB, and it is my honor to be here with you on behalf of an enormous team that puts these together every month. And our program today is as good as ever, and we're looking forward to being able to have detailed discussions about this month's theme, which is around tech threads and navigating the future of digital health. And as you can see from the first hour, and remember it's a 3-hour program, so we go from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Every last Thursday of the month. And we're going to be kicking off our program today with the CEO and co-founder of Helix VM, Robert Rodriguez, who is going to be able to tell us a lot about what's happening with this asymmetrical adoption of asynchronous medical care for physicians and patients to be able to have a relationship around medication writing and prescription writing for medications in an asynchronous fashion. So hour number 2, you'll see here, we kick into a lot of the work our principal and director of advisory services at the lab, Amy West, will be talking to a number of different leaders in the digital health ecosystem, from Garmin to Hexaskin to Deliberate AI to VitalTracer. And Amy will be really delving into what she's seeing and what they're seeing in digital health adoption. And so hour number 3, we then wrap up today's symposium with a number of executive interviews, again, from 7 Wire Ventures and Samsung, all the way to Medikarma and Sensoria and General Catalyst. So looking forward to talking to everybody and looking forward to seeing your chats. Don't forget to use the chat box on the program. Add your LinkedIn, introduce yourself to everybody on the program. And we kick things off today with Robert Rodriguez, the CEO and co-founder and chairman of Helix VM. Robert, how are you?
Sorry about that. Good morning. Can you see me now?
We can see you now.
Okay, there we go.
And that's, you can see
Sorry
you now
about
as well. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
No,
Good
no
morning.
worries. And Robert, just for people that aren't familiar with Helix VM, if you could just give us a 1 or 2 minute thumbnail on the company.
So Helix VM basically is a startup. It's a software platform, a service platform that basically brings together patients, doctors, and depending on the situation, or a referral provider into a clearing and settlement platform. And that clearing and settlement platform looks a little bit like a digital front door. It looks a little bit like RCM in the background. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do within that platform is to enable as much sort of quick asynchronous medicine between patients and doctors, and with the hope of, in essence, making things faster for the patient, making things more profitable for the doctor because it's quicker, and obviously being able to satisfy referral partners' need for quick resolution to medical needs that exist in their store or on their website, wherever that may be.
That's brilliant. And we've seen a really, HITLAB has done a bunch of studies with you guys now. We've seen a really nice evolution of the platform. Talk to us a little bit about your vision of what asynchronous care is going to look like in the US and how you've evolved and really moved the company to new heights by evolving with that vision.
Well, the use of asynchronous medicine inside the practice thereof is not new in the sense that it hasn't been done before. It's been around. You know, the issues that happen with respect to asynchronous medicine are one of adoption, particularly between patient and doctor. And we're very early in the adoption curve. Okay, so patients aren't necessarily sure what to do with it. Doctors obviously have some concerns with respect to efficacy and safety. And so as a result, there's a lot of thought around it in terms of using it in some capacity, particularly with the explosion of telemedicine since COVID. But fundamentally speaking, the processes around seeing a patient asynchronously versus synchronously are very different. and especially around the whole idea from a physician perspective of the amount of data that you need, the volume of data, who collects it for you, do you trust it, subjective information versus objective. That's on the physician side. And then on the patient side, there's a lot of uncertainty. People aren't used to shopping medicine, a medical service, the way that they would shop a product, right? Product, you go on Amazon, you order it, you get it a couple of days later. When you're ordering a service, what exactly am I getting? And so bridging that gap is very, very important in the short run in terms of developing this modality of medicine for physicians and patients. Long run, at the end of the day, I think that with the use of AI and machine learning, you're going to start seeing basically physicians using this mode of medicine to be turned on 24/7, and to be able to, in essence, manage their patient base, both in an episodic fashion as well as also on a chronic care management over the course of a cycle. And so, the workflows get a little bit more complicated, but fundamentally speaking, what it does is it helps the physician just be much more efficient with the patients that they have and spending the right amount of time with physicians when needed.
And this is really, from HITLAB's standpoint, we look at thousands of technologies a year across the digital health ecosystem, and we're testing many of them. And we've seen some really novel elements of what you're doing. From your perspective, what is Helix VM doing? Tell the audience what is novel about it that's creating these new efficiencies and these new accuracies in the healthcare system.
Well, some of the things are basically really in the digital front door. I mean, our digital front door does a lot more stuff, okay? It goes beyond, I think, what a lot of the digital front doors offer in terms of the degree of completion. So we look at it as for example, that we're clearing a patient to be seen by a doctor. We're not just getting your insurance. We're not just getting your demographics. We're not just doing some triage on you. We're basically clearing a trade. And so we use sort of a Wall Street term, but it makes a lot of sense for a physician, right? Because before the physician goes into that room with the patient, they want to know that everything is organized properly, that everything's been checked, that, if I need labs, that the labs are there. And so we really focus, I think, on clearing a trade for the doctor. And I think that that's very unique to what we're doing. I think the second part, what we're doing that we're building towards is I think we are also making the service experience for the patient a little bit closer to what they would expect of an e-commerce type platform. And that obviously is, a vision that we have, which is that, the patient should begin and end in 15, 20 minutes. They shouldn't have to sit around and wait. And I think that that is also extremely novel, where, we're looking at it from the perspective of the patient, sitting on their couch, and just like they would on Amazon, they surf, they find, they look, they shop, they hit the purchase button, and then something happens magically. And so we're looking to bring that also to the patient. So we're looking to have a little bit more of a consumer-oriented approach as opposed to a hurry up and wait, which is endemic in the medical field, right? You hurry up and then you got to wait, right? Who are you waiting for? I'm waiting for the lab. I'm waiting for the doctor. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for that. So I think that those are the two aspects of what we're doing, which is very unique.
And obviously, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence today and how that's going to change healthcare. There's been a lot of evidence and a lot of data about how AI is changing the world in healthcare. How is Helix VM implementing AI, and how is that making the experience, like you just said, easier for the patient?
Well, AI to us, AI sort of, we kind of divide it a little bit, from sort of very low tech, sort of, robotic process automation type stuff, up to, more of the, working with unstructured data. But fundamentally speaking, for us, AI plays an extremely important role in the information gathering from the patient, and then the synthesis that we provide the physician and a medical note. So we work, the AI basically looks to create a medical note for the doctor, which would include obviously subjective information the patient gets, like, their social history, their past medical history, combine it with the present illness, the HPI as they call it, and the problem that they're trying to solve, in order to, in essence, generate what would be considered pretty much close to a full SOAP note, and then marrying with treatment protocols that the physicians, in essence, dictate themselves. I want to treat this way, I want to treat that way. Where I see AI taking a next big step for us is in essence in basically baselining how physicians would treat patients based on the same data. Because we all know that a physician, you put 10 physicians in a room with one patient with the same data, and you might actually get 5 or 6 different treatment plans. So we want to be able to capture that variance around the mean, which is something that typically you don't with sort of the larger AI models, or for that matter, the model that we use today.
Which makes a ton of sense. And so when you think about the strategies that you are deploying to ensure accuracy and reliability for those diagnoses that you were just talking about, and the treatments that are going to be provided in the platform, how are you using technology and certainly human intervention to double click on that?
Well, first and foremost, you're acquiring data from the patient, subject information that they give you, just like you would when you go into the doctor's office and they give you all those forms. And then the second part of it is what we're doing is we're tapping into data warehouses in order to supplement that with what we would call objective data, objective being information that we get from license holders who have medical licenses. Who have medical licenses? Pharmacies do. They have pharmacy records. Insurance companies do. They have also not just insurance information, they also have ICD codes, CPT codes, and basically history. You can also tap into things like, Prisma or, MyChart in order to, again, continue to sort of bring information into that file in order to address the uncertainty that the physician has. And the delicate, so that's what we do in terms of trying to assume and build, in essence, quality in the diagnosis. And so that's number one. And then the second part is, we still require, and at least on our platform, we require the physicians to review literally every single note. So no matter if the AI does all the work for you, you still got to look at it and you got to read it. And you have to make sure that, in essence, that there's agreement. And most of the time there is.
Which is bringing me to my next question, because we've obviously done a couple of studies with the Helix VM platform at the lab, and we've seen incredible results, and we've seen ways people are using the platform that we would have never guessed. Tell the audience a little bit about that and a little bit about what you've seen with the platform's adoption and how different stakeholders are using it in different ways, because that's really been an incredible finding.
Okay. So I think, it really starts where demand manifests itself. So, we have patients who are in a pharmacy and they want something. They don't have a prescription or they don't have a doctor. We have patients who are surfing the net and they're interested in, a GLP, but they don't know where to go. Or for that matter, patients who are interested and they had an authorization that failed for whatever reason. So it really starts with, in essence, bringing in patients who are have a need and an immediate need, okay, number one. And so as a result, the ability to capture those types of patients and process those patients and clear them for the physician to look at them, number one. Number two, the other thing is, as I mentioned, is that we try to work with, license holders in terms of getting referrals into kind of our provider network. And that's also unique. And we're doing so with a white label type approach. So there's that. And then I think, again, on the physician side, what you're talking about here is a speedier way of at least bringing in the patient in the first time, a case management model that allows them to sort of treat just enough to get them going. And eventually the physician will see the patient, but they don't see them as much as they used to. So instead of being in the office, every 3 months or 6 months, maybe you're only in the office every year. And pretty much the rest of the care is, in essence, done over the platform and periodically, and a lot of it is actually done with asynchronous medicine.
And that's fantastic. And our next guest is running behind. So if there's anyone in the audience who has any questions, ping me on LinkedIn. Again, I'm going to put my LinkedIn chat in the chat box. So if you can ping me on LinkedIn, send me your questions there or put them on the chat box here. But certainly we were going to keep this conversation going. Robert, if you could, one of the things that we've seen that really do come up all the time with the platforms that we're testing and with the ecosystem when it comes to digital health technologies, whether it's a remote patient monitoring technology, asynchronous, technologies for patient communications and physicians or AI is what's happening with the data, how is it being secured, where is it sitting, those sorts of questions. If you could tell us a little bit more about what you guys do with the data and how you secure it, how you protect it.
Well, our approach is again unique in the sense that when we capture the data, first of all, the data for the patient, when we capture it, we anonymize it because at the end of the day, for all intent and purpose, we don't need to. We only need to know that there's a case and a patient on one end, and then there's medical information on the other. And so as a result, for example, when we feed the AI the data, we don't feed the AI any information that has to do with that can identify the patient. So as a result, when we get back a diagnosis, it's basically we're in essence matching a diagnosis and a chart to a patient case. That patient case goes to the physician, and then that information in our system, in essence, ceases to exist from a perspective of personal information. It then goes into the doctor's EMR system where it sits, and it stays in the doctor's EMR system because in the doctor's EMR system, because we don't take the doctor out of their EMR, we keep them in their EMR. And then what we do is we put all the data and all the information in there, and those systems are typically much more robust. Regardless of how you put it together, you still have to be HIPAA compliant across the entire supply chain. But typically the data risk that you take with us is less. That's number one. You had also mentioned devices, and the interesting thing with devices and data with devices is that obviously devices are constantly providing the data, and I think that the challenge for a physician practice is what do you do with it? Because most times physician practices are typically looking at that data after the fact, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 months, and obviously as a result, that information somewhere either could be in our system in the future, but it could also be in an EMR system. You sort of need a dashboard, and you need that AI constantly running against the data, not to just spit out useless information that nothing's changed, but to be able to identify, hey, listen, there's something here that we should be concerned about. And so it's in essence kind of a dashboard that's going to basically help identify hotspots of patients based on the ICD codes that they have. And then basically saying, hey, listen, we noticed that this diabetic, their blood sugar spiked 3 times in the past 24 hours above 200. That's a problem. Versus, oh, we noticed that their blood sugar spiked once, but it's been normal the rest of the day. So you need to bring the data in, you need to run that data against a model, and then you need to be able to have those kind of clinical policies in place to understand what's important versus what isn't. Because the more you measure, the more stuff you find. And not everything that you find in medicine, frankly, is important.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think, one of the things that we're getting a lot of messages for here, a lot of questions are people asking about just the throughput because there's so many scripts being written now through so many in this kind of a platform. How are you planning to scale? Well, what kind of plans do you have to go from 100,000 to 1 million to 100 million? Because this is the kind of platform that we could see really taking off. And what are some of the scaling plans that you have?
Well, look, at the end of the day, there are still people involved in this process, okay? And that's something everybody needs to understand. At the end of the day, it's not a legal medical note until a doctor signs it. So, and for a doctor to sign it, they're going to want to read it. So there's always going to be some aspect of a scalability which runs into the fact that you need to find physicians who buy into the style of medicine, okay? The good news is they don't have to spend 15 minutes on something or 20, they can spend 1 or 2. So I think that's the first thing. So for scalability from our perspective is in essence about first and foremost, lowering the amount of work that the physician needs to do. But there is obviously a human component to it. On the patient side, it's really, I think, probably a bigger issue because clearing and settling trades, the computer, if you put in everything perfectly, the computer system does a great job of getting you everything. The problem is that patients don't always give you the right data. And so particularly when you're dealing with newer patients. So the scalability issues that you have aren't so much on if I get the information perfect from the patient, it's when I don't get the information perfect for the patient. And then you're sort of stuck in an exceptions management process where you're communicating to the patient, but you're not always hearing back. And so sometimes you hear back 2 days later and 3 days later, and then what happens is your queues, your work queues from a clearing perspective, can grow very quickly. And so it gets a little messy operationally. And again, these are things that you can solve a lot of it with technology, but fundamentally speaking, you're still going to continue to have situations where the patient's like, I don't understand. What do I need to do next? And you're basically, working from big problem, design technology around it, to smaller problem, design technology around it, to even smaller problems. So, and again, this is where the scaling, the ability to scale is a function of rolling out things like contextualized messaging within the platform for the patient. So that way, when they're done, they know that they're done. If there's something missing, they know something's missing, and being able to do so in a way that isn't just sort of a standard message that gets spammed on the patient side. So scaling is something we are honestly, we're still working through from the perspective of growing and growing very big. But but we are able to today process a lot more patients than a regular medical practice for every unit of labor capacity.
It's fantastic. Well, Robert, thank you for joining the program today. Looking forward to seeing and hearing more great things about Helix VM.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
And again, everybody, look, his LinkedIn is in the chat box, and again, do connect with him. An extraordinarily and very strong program, extraordinarily a high adoption platform. We're excited to see the good things that are going to come from Helix VM. And next up, we are going to be talking about revolutionizing health and looking at the intersection of wearables, AI, and certainly life sciences innovation. And we have an executive joining us from 3M Healthcare, Jeff Hannigan. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the invite to be here.
Good to see you. And first of all, just let the audience know a little bit about your background and where in the world are you today?
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, I am in the Boston, Cambridge area today. Is where I'm based. So yeah, as you said, currently over at Solventum, which as many of you probably know was a recent spin out from 3M, their healthcare division. So I know we had a bit of a back and forth because I only recently joined and was at Merck before that for about 7 years. Trained as a scientist originally at the bench, and then over to the computer side, and I've gotten involved in a variety of more of what I'd consider the business activities as well, including having started and ran for a couple of years a startup accelerator program with other companies such as Microsoft and McKesson. So excited to be here and excited to chat.
Hey, great to have you, and thanks for taking the time out. But first and foremost, obviously, digital is transforming healthcare, life sciences all over the value chain. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen from your insider perspective, not only as a scientist at Merck, but also someone who is a part of incubating new systems there, and now joining 3M and Solventum, another major global change maker when it comes to the healthcare. How have you seen some of these new digital technologies really shaping up and having significance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's across the board, right? Usually when I think about these, I think about the digital technologies and their applications in 4 primary quadrants, right? So the first I see a lot going on are what I'd call the data providers, right? So all these digital advancements, all the AI, everything, nothing's going to happen without data, right? And making that data available to the researchers. And so there's been a lot of really interesting, unique ways at collecting and making data available, such as real world evidence. I know one of our companies I saw over at the studio program, Polygon Health, today were doing this in a really interesting way. So there's the RWE type of data providers. There's also what I'd consider the data generators, right? So I know it's a little bit cheating with the digital because it's in the lab usually, but again, you need it. and especially in terms of lab automation and streamlining and making data more interoperable across systems. I think there's a lot to be done there to just keep feeding that flywheel of digital. There's also the digital data ops. I think we're seeing a lot in that space as far as foundational software development platforms, making things really streamlined, accessible for the data scientists and the engineers that are doing the work. And then that fourth quadrant, right? So there's the real world evidence generators, there's the in the lab, the data generation, there's the ops for the actual people doing the modeling. And then I have the fourth as maybe the more obvious one that people think about around the AI models for things like drug discovery or development applications, where you're leveraging different machine learning, AI, whatever types of models to actually do your research and come up with something to get to patients. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing in that space and how I would break it down into four key categories.
That's amazing. And all of these digital things and technologies that you've seen in the ecosystem developing over the last several years, what do you think has been the most impactful?
Ooh, the most impactful. That is a really good question. It's hard to pick, and I don't want to pick the one that always comes up of it's been AI and it's been large language models and that sort of thing. I think something that has been impactful, I don't know if it's the most impactful, I think has been, as far as wearables, as far as getting the data to patients, I think making, seeing some of the technologies that come out to make that information more accessible, more, kind of streamlined applications to the patient. I think that's a particularly interesting space. And then the other one I'll throw out again is the actual development automation. I know there's a lot of companies out there, like startups, doing very innovative image analytics across just running experiments through manufacturing is very compelling and interesting. I think we've seen a lot of advancements there in the last few years. So those would be two key areas. I think we've seen some really impactful solutions without saying ChatGPT.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting too, because I was talking to the head of the innovation unit at Walmart yesterday, and he had a lot of very interesting insights and perspectives about working with startups and who owns the data, where the AI is sitting in the cloud. How are you seeing, your experience at Merck and then your experience at 3M now? How are you seeing these large corporations managing the relationships with startups and being able to work with them to do a pilot, but then not giving away all their internal data to help build something that they don't own? How is that actually, coming to?
It's a great question. I mean, it's an evolving space, right? I see countless negotiations around this all the time. And, one thing I see a lot on the startup side is in other companies that are looking to maybe sell a model or a platform or capability. It's hey, look, I'm gonna go sell my model, provide my model. Then I'm gonna get their data and I'm gonna use that in my model, and that's gonna make my model better. And that's my value. Again, kind of flywheel that I'm gonna spin. As far as continually generating more data to get more customers, to get more data, to get more, right? And it keeps spinning. The other side of the table is very aware of that, right? Is very aware that, well, hold on a minute, you're taking our data and you're going to use it to create some value in these models, and we're not necessarily going to see anything out of that value. That's not sounding like a good deal, right? And so that's one example that comes to mind. And there's others around security, auditing. How do you ensure that if someone says, yeah, no problem, I'll delete your data, or I'm not going to use it in my models, how do you ensure that that's actually done? There's a I think a lot going on, and I wouldn't consider it standardized yet. I think that it's just coming down to still a lot of negotiations and work between these groups.
Yeah, it does seem to be moving. We've seen a lot of like new terms and new types of structures around cloud escrow accounts and these third
Yeah,
party,
yeah,
you know, cloud accounts where everyone has access, but they're all watching what's going on there or something. It's interesting. So
yeah,
final question, just to wrap up, and again, appreciate your time today. What do you
absolutely.
believe is going to be the combination of wearables and AI where we can really make a difference with patient outcomes? Because you see all these wearables with
Yeah,
all this data, it's all over the place.
yeah,
But what's your perspective? Because you've really had some inside view on this stuff.
yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack with that question. I think as we see wearables become more powerful and able to measure more things and more accessible, I do think, again, probably fairly obvious, right? More data, great. We'll be able to measure more things, great. We'll be able to plug those into the algorithms, awesome. So I do think we will continue to see that. And I do think that these technologies will continue to be more accessible to folks. I think the reach is interesting as well, right? So there's different ways to approach clinical trials, and there's a lot of effort going into making clinical trials more accessible to people that don't live necessarily in an area that it's easy to get to, a major medical center or even a medical center, right? Especially in very rural areas. And so I do think, and I see that happening, right, where things like wearables are making it easier for patients to participate in programs. It doesn't necessitate quite as many times needing to come back to the hospital or the clinic or wherever you're going for that study or for your care. So I think that's the most exciting space that I'm seeing it, to be honest.
This has been great, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, everybody around the world who is watching the program and on YouTube, link in with Jeff with Solventum 3.
Yeah, I can put my thing. Yeah,
We
put my
did it
link
for you
in the
already.
chat here if folks want to.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Well,
did it.
thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Take care. So again, just incredible insights and perspectives from Jeff Hannigan. Next up, we have our September Symposium giveaway, and we're excited to be able to offer this. This is going to be an audience shout out on LinkedIn with a tag and a 1-year break through general fellowship valued at $99, and then a ticket to join us and about a few hundred others at the Fall 2024 Summit in New York City in Times Square, Microsoft Tech Center. And here is the code. And again, you guys go to the link and go and put in this code word and get selected for some prizes. And again, really excited to see the engagements. We did this last month for the first time and just had tremendous engagement, and we have people now that are joining the community that are getting all kinds of great free access to tremendous reports, phenomenal research studies that we do every day, every week, every month. And then obviously the incredible community that offers insights and perspectives on what you're going through as an executive. What do you need to do to navigate the complex innovation system in the United States? And how do you ensure that the decisions that you're making with multi-million-dollar, decamillion-dollar, even centimillion-dollar digital health platforms implemented in large ecosystems are not going to overall detract, but rather really progress what you're doing for patients and certainly what you're doing for your own legacy. And next up, speaking of legacy, here's someone who's creating a great legacy in data and life sciences and patient care, Genentech, Alice Chung. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Stan. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can even see you, which is really a good combination when you're doing things like this. So thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, if you could just start off with giving everybody like a 1-minute overview of your background, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alice Chung, and I'm currently based in San Francisco Bay Area. I am a member of Genentech's business operations team in the areas of strategic analytics and intelligence. I lead science clinical analytics efforts and collaborate with cross-functional stakeholders, including medical and field medical teams, to design and implement sustainable business strategies and programs using analytics for oncology, immunology, ophthalmology, neuroscience, and all of our pipeline molecules. So my background is diverse, where I have extensive experience in long-term strategy formulation, scenario planning, program design, and embed analytics use. I'm also part of Global Innovation Management Institute's member, advocating the practice of innovations and mentoring others who are interested in this discipline. I'm glad to be here, partnering with HITLAB's Digital Summit effort. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. And tell us a little bit, you have such an interesting role in Genentech. We really are fascinated by the work that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about how this role intersects with just the massive trends that we're seeing across the ecosystem with wearables and AI and like.
Sure. My role in analytics oftentimes needs to identify and solve business problems. So from there is to utilize relevant data sets to find answers for our medical teams. So the intersections with the latest advancements in new technology helps to improve not just the efficiencies to perform analysis, but to also leverage the data sets and to triangulate with a lot of different data sources and to test hypotheses, because the efficiencies are there, you can do a little bit more. Our feedback as analysts are also helping the machine and the new technologies to improve to solve business problems in real world. So that's really how our roles continue to evolve and becoming more sophisticated with advancements in new technology.
That's fantastic. And that there's no hotter space right now where we're seeing so much adoption of digital technology in those areas. It seems like almost everyone these days is wearing some kind of wearable, whether it's a ring or a watch or whatever it might be. And literally, I was giving a talk at the UN yesterday, and it seemed like half the room of the people that I was talking to, about 100 folks or so, were wearing some kind of wearable. And these were folks not just from the US, but from all over the world. So obviously, you're getting a lot more data to do a lot more analytics on, right?
Yes, a lot more data also means a lot more noise too. It goes
Yeah, that's
both
right.
ways. Yes.
So let's dig into that, because I really wanted to ask you about that in this session as well. But talk to us about that. How is the team contributing, and your team how are they contributing to this kind of effort of taking all of this data, integrating all these technologies into the medical and scientific strategies that Genentech is developing?
They're all relating to utilizing technology's capabilities to triangulate potential scientific needs. The first example, we have leveraged new technology to assess health equity trends related to women's health and the potential prevalence in certain disease states. So the goal here is to understand, are there any alignment with existing and or new kind of materials that we could discover more. And so that particular findings, we're able to integrate that into more discovery and analytical effort. So that's part one. And then the other example is to surface the correlations of more than 10 different data sources to see what kind of trends are showing up in certain specific disease or therapeutic areas. So the findings here is that a lot of different data sets coming together. They all have their different biases and caveats. So how do you bring the right level of contextual elements to really understand what's going on and be able to identify the right components to incorporate it into the medical and scientific strategy. So both of these efforts are examples where we have contributed to pulling information, more data sets, leveraging advanced technologies to understand more of the disease needs better. So I would say this is how we as analytics teams can help continue to contribute.
And that's enormous, because as those analytics teams and teams across life sciences are contributing to strategy, clearly the strategy team is going to be more excited about, and the executive leadership team at life sciences, health plans, certainly provide organizations and employers are going to be more excited about getting more data because it's more actionable. And we've got about 2 minutes left, and I just want to make sure we get this question in too, because it's one I've really been thinking about with what you guys are doing. talk to our audience, again, very diverse group of startups and digital health executives, life science provider pair, and employer executives about the challenges that you're seeing that are associated with integrating this kind of real-time data, maybe even asynchronous data, into your analytics framework.
I would say the beauty of the data is that you sometimes don't have to refresh. The downsides, you can have a lot of noises, and you can also not having enough of the solid data curation steps in order to filter out the noises, the impurities, and close the loop. So that will continue to recommend having human in the loop along the way, from design, from data curations, from interpretations, from use, is what you will need to make sure you build in the process, in the operations, and the utilizations and feedback as well, because it's just like any other ingredients. As an example, as an analogy, is cooking. If you know how your materials is sourced, raw ingredients, how it's preparing, and you can trust it. So I think that will be the continuous component to think about as we leverage more advanced technologies.
Okay, this has been fantastic, Alice. And again, thank you very much for joining us today, and really appreciate your time. And looking forward to having you back on here and having you on a convene for the Breakthrough Alliance knowledge sharing sessions that we do as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are interested in joining the Breakthrough Alliance, either as a fellow or executive fellow or a global fellow, or maybe even the board, do check in and check the link in the chat about this. That's exciting areas to get into. There's a lot of new things to learn. There's a ton of different people to get to know. And it is a fast growing network of hundreds of people around the world, soon to be thousands. And we're just seeing so many people get and take advantage of this, whether it's going on and doing one-on-ones for mentorship, whether it's amplifying your brand, or whether it's actually learning about what executives are doing when they're looking for digital health companies to work with, or what investors are looking for to invest in digital health companies, or what some digital health companies who are already at $1 billion, $2 billion valuation are doing, and how they did it, so that you can receive and really learn about these sorts of things. So look at the link that Sammy just posted into the chat and join today. We'd love to have you on the network. Again, it's $99 a year for folks who are on a budget, and then it goes up from there for folks who want to do a little bit more and contribute a little bit more. Don't forget that Women's Health Tech Initiative, we are so excited, $10,000 in prizes. Some of the leading companies and leading women, Esther Dyson is going to be there on October 11th. Click on the QR code and register today for Women's Health Tech Innovators Live Pitch Day. It's free to attend. And again, learn about what's driving the adoption of women's health tech companies, learn about what's important for women's health tech companies, and be a part of that ecosystem. I'd love to get you to join that as well. And of course, the agenda today moves quickly. You know how we operate here. Those of you who've done this before, we have 5, 10, 50-minute sessions that move fast, and we're now into the next session. And we want to talk to an extraordinary company that's based here in New York City called the Proficient Lab. It's a digital health platform for people who are developing molecules and devices and need a lab management system to do so. And we're really, really happy to have with us the CTO and co-founder, Stas Levich, and who is also from New York City, Ukrainian national, and is going to talk to us a little bit about the platform and what they've done to bring it to life and to now scale it. Stas, welcome to the program. Great to see you.
Thank you, Ness. Thank you for having me.
Now, if you could just give everyone a 1-minute thumbnail about your background.
I mean, you've done it better than I have, honestly, but I am Stas Levich. I am the CTO of the Proficient Lab, and we're a company trying to bring modernization and standardization into laboratory training and compliance world. My personal background is in government, so I have kind of a lot of experience in this kind of bringing something that was an inefficient and ancient process into the digital modern world.
And that's what we love about your background. It's so eclectic, and it really does speak volumes about just the person you are and getting into healthcare and really looking at how to be a contributor and be a part of an ecosystem to bring better care to patients, and really appreciate that. Really what struck me when we were talking was how you've used Microsoft as a tech stack when you're in your platform, which is extraordinarily advanced. Again, just amazing from the UX UI standpoint all the way down to the data architecture. Tell us a little bit about Microsoft's AI tools and services and how that's helped you build this kind of AI-driven lab management system.
Sure. So I think that Microsoft has done a great job democratizing technical access to AI, especially so for smaller companies. One could argue that they've done just as good of a job confusing everybody by trying to stick AI everywhere, but there's no denying that their early interest and investment in OpenAI and their robust cloud architecture kind of trivializes access for a company of any size to today's most modern, most advanced LLMs. For us, for the Proficient Lab specifically, AI is a strategic goal. What we've done so far is we digitized a very manual and low-tech laboratory compliance and training process, which, you know, sometimes when I say low-tech, I mean sometimes Excel files and sometimes literally jotting things down on a napkin. That's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. And we've approached that in a more sort of traditional way for now. We made a purpose-built software. We made what we think is a clever software which helps guide people through what's kind of a tricky process. That said, AI automation is the ultimate goal. We're envisioning a future where you can go through the entire process by essentially talking to the AI assistant, and Microsoft's commitment to AI and their sort of interest in everything AI is an important building block of that. I just wanted to say that as an example of that, Microsoft just this year, they've announced partnerships with other LLMs, and they no longer offer now OpenAI LLMs that they're obviously very much connected with, but they're working with Meta, some open source LLMs, and I think even Amazon LLMs, and they're clearly trying to be sort of like a vanguard and maybe a store for LLMs.
I love that model, and that makes a ton of sense, being an LLM store, LLM Mart or something like that. That's fantastic.
Something like that.
So, like, obviously, Sas, we've talked. You know, we've vetted your technology platform. It's scaling fast. It's amazing to see just what it offers to folks in the lab systems world and how unique it is on so many levels. But one of the things that you've told me about is just how you're concerned about scalability. You want to be able to go from 1,000 users, which you guys are almost at now, and then get to 10,000, 100,000, a million, et cetera. And as everyone knows, the lab market in the US and around the world is ridiculous, almost $100 billion a year in lab management system stuff. So it's just a huge demand for better systems like yours. How are you planning to scale? What are you doing with the Microsoft tech stack to ensure that you're going to be able to scale properly?
I think the scalability and performance is in general kind of a function of maturity of the entire tech stack. We're talking from the hardware infrastructure and cloud services and whatnot all the way to coding. And there's hardly anything in the market that's more mature than Microsoft technology. I like to say that us nerds can argue about anything, but my personal belief is that Microsoft makes the most convenient development and hosting and all those kind of tools. As you know, we're a young company, and we're able to stay ahead of any of our scaling issues for now, but having the ability to sort of vertically and horizontally integrate at the click of a button is definitely a very welcome comfort for us.
And when you think about that scalability, it sounds like you really have thought about it, and you're going to be able to scale nicely. How does the Microsoft tech stack help in ensuring security and compliance? Because that's the next big thing everyone's worried about, is the cybersecurity, and there's been so many issues with that over the last 6 months in the U.S. healthcare system. And what are you guys doing with all of this kind of very sensitive data that you're going to be running through your system, that you are running through your system on a daily basis today?
Yeah, we kind of put the security at the forefront from the very early stages of our enterprise here. And the Proficient Lab is right now HIPAA compliant. We don't actually technically have to be when storing any patient information, but we decided to go through this process anyway because for a couple of reasons, actually. One of them, and arguably the most important one being that going through a process like this kind of forces you to think about scenarios and the situations that you otherwise may not have thought about. I mean, an example being, is your database provider geo-replicating your data in a way that ends up in a different jurisdiction, a different country or something like that? And there's quite a few scenarios like this. And I feel like going through something like HIPAA and concentrating on security, it kind of makes you think in a way that any software company should be thinking anyway. That said, all of this is to say that security and compliance is kind of your tech stack and your hosting infrastructure, in my opinion, is just an integral to security and compliance as any of your day-to-day coding choices that you or your employees may make. And this is where Microsoft really comes in, because by piggybacking all of their considerable resources and all of their experience, and obviously they have to be compliant, and they've been compliant, you're not starting from zero. And I'm sure as anybody who's gone through HIPAA or anything similar like that knows, it's such a convoluted and long process that any leg up, any help you can get from anywhere is great.
That's the way it goes with this as well, is that it's really about being able to leverage what your partners are providing for you and with you. And so
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you've obviously found with using Microsoft Cloud. And when you're using the Microsoft Cloud infrastructure for your health application that for the professional lab, what kind of support for data storage and for performance and just high processing needs are you seeing them? And again, this is so important. It's really critical because a lot of folks hear about a lot of cloud solutions, but we really haven't covered Microsoft over the last year. So we want to do it today. But if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
So for us, I think it's kind of hard to overstate just how important Microsoft's just cloud has been for us. We're 100% managed services. We use 100% managed services, which means that a lot of the traditional upkeep tasks simply don't exist for us. Things like worrying about uptime, operating system updates, driver updates, a lot of these kind of nitty-gritty details that are not particularly sexy and nobody talks about, we just don't have to deal with. They're off our plate. And if they're off our plate, we can concentrate ourselves on delivering the better product at the end of the day. I'm old enough to remember what it was like to have a software company in the pre-cloud days, or at least in the days of when the cloud was just nascent. And the army of people it took to keep the myriad of servers plugged in and not on fire, let alone functioning properly and serving what you want them to be serving to people. And now, thanks to the Microsoft Cloud, we can create same kind of production level infrastructure, same kind of environments. You could argue even better environments with multiple redundancies, fail safes, and whatever you need for production infrastructure with a fraction of the people, sitting at home with the tablets, probably pensless, honestly. And that's just wonderful because we can concentrate our resources on something else and be capital efficient. And I think that another piece of what we consider to be cloud that I feel sometimes is missed when we talk about the cloud is sort of like general business tools, which I think where Microsoft shines. And I'm talking about things like Word, Excel, and whatnot, and maybe whatever tools that make your company run better. My personal belief is that ensuring that your colleagues are awful tools that make their lives easy and efficient as a technological leader in a company is just as important as ensuring that your product offering is in top shape. Because I think that it's just a matter of time before your internal inefficiencies result in external consequences. And Microsoft's cloud tools give us an ability to create processes where we can deal with onboarding in minutes, where we can disperse tools to people as easy as ordering something from Amazon. And for a small company, that's a big force multiplier.
Love it. And I think that's been, when you think about the Microsoft tech stack that you've developed in, and you think about where it's going next, one of the interesting things to look at is just how much they're investing into AI. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about how they've invested in AI in a lot of different areas. They're not just putting OpenAI on their tech stack. They're really making sure that the Microsoft tech stack is going to offer its users and its developers a host of AI to build that together. And so as you're looking at some of the AI options that are out there and you're starting to see where the AI can actually help expand your product and bring in new features and functions. What are some of the future AI technologies that you're viewing now, and where do you see that really being able to improve your platform?
That's an interesting question. I think when I think about AI, I'm sort of like, I try to be what I would call an AI realist. And every time I see that, oh, this company does that AI, I always try to sort of investigate, what does that really mean? Is somebody just putting a text box with an AI assistant in it, or is it actually core to the software that they're trying to make? As I mentioned earlier, to us, it is a strategic goal, meaning that to us, it's a core of our future plans. So what I'm looking at is, to tell you plainly, I'm looking at all of these tools just getting a little bit better. Because especially when you're dealing with things like medical information, your AI LLMs hallucinating or making mistakes is not exactly ideal. So that's, I guess I would say that's where we're looking at. I'm very interested, considering how far we've come in a couple of years. I'm very interested to see just how much better it gets in a couple of years and how much we can leverage it to turn it, more or less any traditional software into essentially just talking to a computer like Star Trek.
This is great, Stas. And again, congratulations. I mean, it's so wonderful to see a digital health company scaling as quickly as you guys are. And again, for anybody in our ecosystem who either knows a molecule that needs help, or knows people who are building molecules, or knows an incubator or a lab system, or an accelerator that needs a lab management system, or who has companies that need, please get in touch with Stas. It's a great platform. We're seeing institutions adopted dramatically and radically and quickly, and we're seeing the lines build up nicely for that. And thank you again, Stas, for joining today.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
You too. And as everyone knows, who's a part of the ecosystem at the lab, we have a competition where we actually ask people to participate in the poll. And the poll today is, what do you see as the biggest limitation of current wearable technology in health management? 1, accuracy of health data. 2, battery life. 3, lack of integration with healthcare providers or systems, physicians, clinics, etc. 4, cost of devices or subscriptions. 5, privacy concerns related to personal health. 6, limited features for specific health conditions. 7, why are you asking me these stupid questions? I don't use wearables anyway. So if you could fill out the poll answers. You guys are some of the biggest experts in the global health system and some of the leaders in digital health. And so your expertise and your overall opinions here are really important to us. Believe it or not, we really do care about this stuff. And this is the kind of thing we get to put into publications, and we'll certainly keep you in the loop on that. If you get one of our 10 million emails a week, you probably know that already, but we will definitely keep you apprised of the data, although you'll see it quickly here now anyway. So anyway, the polling data is looking good, and we are going to stop sharing shortly, but the idea is that we've got 49% of you participating, which is great. And we have something to tell you that we're all very excited about at the lab, and hopefully you are too, which is we've got another challenge. And you're saying, okay, how many challenges are you guys doing? And frankly, we will do as many challenges as we need to, and to help change and transform the global health system to make digital work for all 8 billion people. And so this challenge is really interesting. This is coming from a Johnson & Johnson consumer spinoff company called Kenvue. One of their products is Versally, and Versally is a menopause product for women experiencing menopause, and they want your help. They want prototypes, they want ideas, they want data science models, AI, digital therapeutics. It could be anything that's touching women's health. It could be anything touching digital health that could help women going through menopause. But they're writing $50,000 in checks to people who win this competition, which is called the Versally HITLAB Innovation Challenge So do take a look at that link and do share with all of your friends, families, colleagues, co-workers. If you have a mail carrier, share it with them. If you have a dog who's programming in Python, share with that dog. We don't care who you share with. As long as they can enter a really good idea, we want to see it because it is an exciting time, and it's a $25,000 first place prize, and it is going to be one of the biggest challenges of the year in the digital health ecosystem, and something that we are all looking forward to in just incredible generosity and an enormous amount of innovation spirit from Kenvue, the Johnson & Johnson consumer spinoff, and that is going to be well worth it. So just to jump into the second hour here of the September Digital Health Symposium, we are really excited to start it off with one of the HITLAB companies that we've been researching and working with for a long time now, Pierre-Alexandre Fournier, and our head of HITLAB Advisory Services, Principal Directory, Amy West, will be taking over for the next hour and kicking off with Pierre. Amy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Stan. And I am so excited to get to talk with Pierre-Alexandre, CEO of Hexoskin, as he and his company are really playing in some innovative areas of healthcare and really looking at the beyond the pill ideas. So Pierre-Alexandre, thank you so much for joining us, and would love to have a little chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And before I jump in, though, is there anything you'd like to share beyond the fact that you are CEO of your organization?
I would like to share that we're working with hundreds of organizations who are doing health research with digital health tools, and Hexoskin is an open API. So if you want to look at it, go on our website in the developer section.
Wonderful. So to kick off the conversation, I want to ask you kind of a big question around how do you envision the convergence of smart clothing, software, and AI data analytics, how those things are going to transform the future of health technology and healthcare overall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're lucky today because we have technologies that allow us to do three things. We can passively record health data from patients, and it's very important that this is passive because we want to put the least burden possible on the patient. And we have technology that can take this data from the patient environment to another location, so that it's accessible for caregivers, providers, and patients alike. And then we have technologies that can look at this data and summarize it to find the important things, the important numbers that you can act on it. And these three things together, I think they're revolutionary, because suddenly we can see things that we couldn't see before. And that's helpful for pharma companies to better understand what their products are doing. It's useful for providers because they can provide better services to their patients. They can care for patients that they wouldn't be able to care because they are not mobile or they live far away. And they're very useful for patients and their families as well, because they have access to new types of data. It used to be that you had a scale at home, maybe a thermometer, and that was pretty much it. Now you have all these tools that you can use to manage your own health. And more groups of patients have access to these tools for their specific health conditions. And I think it's revolutionary.
I agree. And I love at the core, it's really about being very patient, very customer centric in your approach. And that idea of passive data collection. You're not making somebody do something more than they're already doing. I think that's brilliant, and a really great way to bring healthcare and health insights into the equation. So can you describe some of the most innovative features of your smart clothing products and how you're leveraging AI in the data analytics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So we're doing a lot of things with our two lines of products. So the Hexoskin smart shirts and the AstroSkin wearable sensor system. I think so. There's a lot of things that other products are doing. For example, monitoring heart arrhythmias, gait, things like that. I think two things that we're doing that are very unique is that the AstroScan sensor system that we have can continuously monitor systolic blood pressure. Meaning, instead of having a blood cuff that inflates and then you get one reading and then you cannot really get another reading within 5 or 15 minutes. You get a reading with our system at every heartbeat. Every heartbeat gives you an estimate of systolic blood pressure. And I think this is new. This is going to change the way we look at blood pressure management. Another thing that we do that is pretty unique is that every one of our products has thoracic and abdominal breathing sensors that are very, very precise to monitor breathing patterns. So this is not just a breathing rate monitor. We monitor breathing patterns. We can differentiate between laughing and coughing. We can monitor the symmetry of breathing. If you breathe from your chest or from your belly, if you take pauses when you breathe, things like that. And I believe that when you have a new instrument, it changes scientific theories. When you can look at something that you couldn't look at before, it can change the definition of a disease. It can change the way we define a standard of care, in this case for respiratory diseases.
And it's in a real world setting. It's not necessarily a
Yes.
clinical trial that's controlled, which is beautiful. And that's the evidence that everybody's looking for these days. So that's great. So with the data and the evidence that you're generating, how are your users and whether it's the person wearing the clothing or a healthcare provider, how are they using that data in their lives or in their practice?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, and we provide tools to help with that, because the products we have, they're high resolution sensors. We can produce tens of millions of data points per day. Of course, we don't expect anybody to look at the whole data set. So we provide tools so that we can summarize that data for providers, for researchers, for patients. For example, we've developed AI tools to look at cardiac arrhythmias. We've developed AI tools to look at breathing patterns. So we can summarize what's happening with a patient in a given day or a given week and identify trends and provide objective measures of significant health events. I think that's very important, because in the end, you can look at the wearable, you can look at the whole software stack, but what people are buying really is that end result, that summary report that makes you think, oh, well, this looks okay, or there's something we need to change here.
Yeah, and kind of just segueing into preventive healthcare. There's a huge opportunity for this type of technology to support that prevention and earlier intervention versus our traditional sick care model, which we know is very expensive, as well as personalized medicine and personalized care as well. Can you talk a little bit about the potential that we have with your types of offerings in those areas?
Yeah, sure. And I think it applies to us and to the whole industry, is that when we start monitoring patients and interacting with them in a way that we record the observations and we record the interventions, at first what you have is a system where you can use new information to act. But over the long term, you accumulate data that allows you to automate some of the intervention, because you've learned about all the intervention that people have done based on your observations, and you've learned about the outcomes of their intervention based on these observations. So I think all our systems are going to become a lot smarter, and we'll be able to automate a lot more of the monitoring and the health assessments and the decisions we make, which is very important, because if you look at the healthcare system today, the bottleneck is human resources, definitely. If you want to increase access to care, you have to have more people working to provide care, or you have to develop systems that are more efficient at using these people. And I think if you can automate these cognitive tasks that can only be done by humans today, then you free up a lot of time for the most important part of the care and that relationship between the provider and the patient.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because that really is so critically important to support that relationship. There's this conversation is fascinating, and it's so exciting about when we think about the future of healthcare and the things that can change it and make it more accessible and more evidence driven in a real world way. I could ask you a million questions, but one more question, and then we can close out. But obviously, partnerships are playing a huge role when we look at healthcare, and whether it's large organizations or working with smaller startups, or smaller startups working together in a coalition. Can you talk a little bit about partnerships in your area and how they're playing a role to help you advance your technology, and how you're expanding the use cases that you have?
It's a great question. So we've always believed in open innovation. I started my career working on building the internet, and that was kind of the philosophy, to have protocols that can talk together and be very open about everything that you develop. And the result of that is that we've built a very open platform. We're involved in over 100 research projects at the moment in different specialties. Most of these projects aim to validate the digital biomarkers we provide for specific applications and for specific patient population, and to define better standard of care for these patient population. This is not something we would be able to do by ourselves. This requires a lot of investment. This requires patient access. It requires a lot of people from different specialties, physicians and researchers and scientists from different specialties. So we really think this has to be a collaborative effort, and we're very proud to work with pharma companies, with research hospitals, with universities, and different groups, patient groups as well, to push the technology forward and to bring what is necessary, which is a culture change and the education and the communications we need to do about these technologies, because this is the real challenge. It's culture and education.
Well, congrats on all your success, the work you're doing. Your point, we cannot do it alone, especially in healthcare. It's just becoming more and more apparent. And the work that you're doing is amazing. It is groundbreaking, and it is really looking at the new horizons when we think about healthcare. Like, who used to think about clothing as healthcare, right? But it really is going to be a game changer. So congrats with all your success. And before we move along, any last comments you'd like to share before you head out?
Well, again, I'm reaching out to the community. We work with a lot of people. Go on our website, exoskin.com. We have sections talking about the hundreds of papers that the scientific community has published using the Exoskin platform. There's information about how you can use the platform as a developer to export data to a third-party software, for example, and many examples of use cases and details about the technology. So please visit our website on exoskin.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure, and congratulations. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Super. So now we are going to be having a chat with Mark Afjes, who is the founder and CEO of Deliberate AI. And really excited to get to spend some time with Mark again. It's been a little while, so welcome.
Thank you. Can you see me okay? Here we go.
I think so.
Here we go.
But thank you so much. And I'm excited to get to chat a bit about, mental health care in the innovation space and the work that you're doing. Before we jump into some of the questions, could you just share a little bit of background about yourself? Obviously, you're the founder and CEO of Deliberate AI, but is there anything else you'd like to share?
I actually came to this from a slightly different background than most folks in mental health specifically. I came to this as a kind of true lived experience, and really kind of, I guess, experiencing the subjectivity that's really hampering mental health. And that's really kind of been a foundational principle in what we're trying to achieve with deliberate health and deliberate AI is how can we kind of add more objectivity to mental and behavioral health. So that's maybe helpful. I guess the rest of our team is a combination of psychiatrists, neuroscientists, computational scientists, but I came to this kind of really wanted to make a difference through my own lived experience. So for those other people out there, kind of that's a good motivator, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thanks for really diving into this space because it is an area of great need around the U.S. and around the globe. So obviously, AI is a big topic today and everywhere. So from your perspective, how do you envision AI transforming the mental health landscape, over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think we're in a super exciting time, as you say as well, kind of, Amy. I think one of the things that I think is specifically relevant for mental health is if we look at it, we don't really understand many of the causes and mechanisms of mental health, right? So kind of key problems we see today is that we have poor diagnosis, poor detection of problems. So it's either too late or incorrectly diagnosed. We see typically poor outcomes. Treatment is trial and error. New therapy development, specifically drug development, has much higher failure rates than other therapeutic areas. And we have this issue of access, right, where we have limited clinicians that are overwhelmed with kind of the demands put on them, and costs are pretty high. So from an AI perspective, I think kind of the most and the first kind of impact AI will have, is specifically multimodal AI, which I can get back into later, where we can really start to combine kind of information signals that weren't available before, such as through wearables, kind of audiovisual info. It can really help us improve our understanding of the mechanisms of mental health. So kind of better understanding what is driving it, what are the social determinants contributing to it. And then the second thing that will enable us to do is actually develop and provide better treatments that are more personalized. So how do we kind of better organize clinical trials? How do we better identify maybe drug candidates that are more likely to succeed? How do we design trials to make sure that they get tested? And how do we make sure that treatments are personalized to the treatments that are going to help that particular individual? And then the third area, I think, is really around kind of finding ambient intelligence to kind of do earlier and better diagnosis. How can we more quickly pick up on early onset of mental health conditions? And the final thing, I guess, is kind of it's also really allowing for a lot of productivity improvement. So kind of AI scribes are an example where we can offload a lot of the administrative burden for clinicians. And even kind of bringing digital therapeutics, digital assessments to kind of also help kind of drive that improvement to open up access to care by basically offloading a lot of the things that are keeping clinicians from doing that work. So those would be kind of the 4 areas that I think are going to be impacted most.
Well, that's, it's very exciting, and it'll be interesting to see the speed at which it transforms as well, because obviously AI has a tremendous ability to make things go, to accelerate. So it's going to be really interesting to see, at the pace at which those things are starting to transform. But thanks for your perspective on that. It's really insightful. And from a deliberate AI standpoint, can you share or explain how your AI technology works to actually support mental health care?
Yeah.
And what are you looking to solve? What problem are you looking to solve?
So as I said at the very beginning, like one of the biggest problems we have is this subjectivity, right? So we set out to really kind of how do we get to a point that we can more objectively measure things, and by measurement kind of inform treatment plans, inform drug clinical trials, and basically kind of help both improve diagnostics as well as clinical intelligence. But the way we're doing it, so we look at like areas like oncology where biomarkers have had a huge impact in kind of personalized medicine, precision medicine. That hasn't really happened in kind of mental health. And part of the reason is that we have these kind of really rich kind of correlations, but kind of many of these individual correlations don't explain enough or aren't precise enough. So what we're doing with deliberate AI is we're taking a multimodal AI approach where we say, rather than looking at individual things such as speech or kind of facial emotional expression or wearable information, how do we combine that data into models that are actually much more predictive and have a much higher level of accuracy and actionability. So we're doing it. And as an example, we started with audio-visual information, behavioral analysis, which is particularly relevant for mental health. And we started expanding into EEG and continuous passive sensing. Our kind of, I guess we're most known currently for our first model, which we call AI COA, or AI Clinical Outcome Assessment, is the first model the FDA accepted earlier this year as a novel kind of endpoint candidate for psychiatric depression and anxiety trials. So this will be the first AI, first digital health technology, first project in psychiatry and neuroscience that is really on track to become kind of a novel primary endpoint for these trials. So that's the kind of work we're doing. We're doing other work with DARPA around better prediction of suicidal risk. And we announced kind of last week that together with Mount Sinai, our consortium led by Mount Sinai in New York, we were awarded a $20 million NIMH grant to come up with individual personalized phenotypes to really kind of better inform how can we kind of provide better prognosis for people when they get into contact with mental health clinicians for the first time. So that's some of the work we're doing. Very exciting. Yeah.
Congrats on that. That's outstanding. It really is. You're really driving change, which is critical. And mental health crosses so many different areas of challenges and need. Well, when we're talking about AI, obviously one of the big topics is always the accuracy of the data. Can we trust the data? Is there bias introduced? And how do you guys manage that in the work that you're doing relative to mental health and just the data that you're using?
Yeah. No, so this is a super important area, not just generally, I guess, in AI and healthcare, but even more so within mental health, I would kind of argue. A couple of things we're doing. So there is a whole element around kind of how do you build models? And one of the benefits we have of being part of this pilot program with the FDA, although we're guinea pigs, we get some preferential access as well to kind of really think through how does clinical validation, how do kind of robust machine learning models work? So first of all, which is kind of table stakes, is that the data that's being used to train models needs to be diverse. So kind of across demographic groups, different sites, different age groups, all those kind of things. But some of the things that are less understood is it also needs to be balanced. So we're not training, for instance, classification models for simple diagnostic, but we're actually trying to measure severity. And the only way to do that isn't the way you do typical clinical trials. You actually need to make sure that kind of the groups that you're sampling from are balanced across severity, that you have a similar size subgroup that you can actually compare with. So that's something we spend a lot of time. I think the third kind of most important thing is that we very much believe in explainability. So we spend a lot of effort in creating explainable models using techniques such as Shapley analysis that really allow us to say, well, why is a model giving this particular rating on severity, or somebody's predicting to a treatment response? And by doing that, we can kind of quantify why the model is saying, like, it's this factor that's contributing to the prediction or kind of measurement of this person on these scales. So yeah, those are the things that we're doing. And then finally, I think for any production model, there's a continuous tracking that needs to happen to make sure there's no model drift. And we have kind of procedures for that as well.
That's great. And because I know that's a huge challenge for a lot of organizations and a lot of people focusing, leveraging AI with data. So that sounds like you guys have a really good, solid handle on it and are managing it really, really well, which is great and just makes a more credible offering. So early, at the top of the conversation, you'd shared sort of your sort of perspective on the 4 areas of opportunity in the future of mental health. And as we close out, what role do you hope your company will be playing as you think about the future of mental health in healthcare and in technology, and as healthcare is evolving and changing with all these innovations?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I think we've seen a lot of venture funding coming into digital kind of mental health, and a lot of that has actually geared towards kind of those that try to improve access and basically their provider models. Now, there's often an element of technologies being added to that, but kind of often those that started off with technologies, just companies like Mindstrong, that's now kind of defunct, have switched to kind of more provider operations. We're not doing that. So we really believe that in order to improve mental health, what we need to do beyond this, the next wave, is we really need technology to improve outcomes. We need better treatments. We need better therapies to kind of help with that. So our focus is very much around how do we ensure that technology is there? And we are doing that across 3 areas, really, kind of helping to come up with advanced diagnostics and monitoring. So how do we really emphasize technology to do that? Secondly is kind of precision therapy enablement. So we're not doing the precision therapy, but how can we help drug development and clinical care kind of tailor their solution to that? And thirdly is what we call ambient clinical intelligence. So how do we move beyond kind of digital scribes to kind of measure people at home in clinical encounters to get much richer information that can be more proactive as elements occur. So those are the 3 areas that we're hoping to play a role in the exciting future and AI revolution that's about to start, I feel.
Well, and what I love about what you just shared, really the heart of it is collaboration, working with others to enable, support, and optimize and create that synergy that we need. So it's super exciting, and what you're doing is amazing, and congrats on all your success. Before we end our session, is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, besides the fact that if people are kind of excited about this space and are looking for partners in pushing this forward, we're always looking for collaborators. So feel free to reach out, and happy to talk and see what we can do together.
That's an amazing invitation. That's an amazing invitation, and I strongly encourage everyone here to bombard your LinkedIn with collaboration invitations. But thank you so much, Mark. It's nice to see you again, and look forward to catching up in the future as well.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Amy. Bye.
You got it. Take care.
Bye.
So now I'd like to take us to the next poll. And the poll question that we're going to be discussing is, how has wearable technology influenced your healthcare decisions? And again, this is a newer space, so really curious to know how wearable technology has influenced your healthcare decisions. And the questions or the answers, there would be significantly. I frequently adjust my lifestyle medical treatment based on wearable data. So that's someone who uses it a lot. The next one would be moderately, where I occasionally make changes based on the data. Slightly, it has raised my awareness, but hasn't led to major decisions, or not at all. I don't use wearable data to make healthcare decisions, or I do not use wearables. Like it could be smartwatches, sensors, smart clothing, like we talked about earlier. But curious to know who's using it and how much. And it looks like still got a few more coming in. We've got a lot of people who are about a fifth of them using it pretty significantly. So that's great. So the digital healthcare revolution is taking hold. Still a chunk that are not using wearables, but I understand that as well. But I can only imagine that these are not going to go away, as we know, and there's going to be a lot more opportunity to have wearables that you don't necessarily have to have on your smartwatch. It can be something in your clothing, in your the environment where you are. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves over time. So with that, I am going to just share some updates on some events that are happening through the HITLAB organization. The Women's Health Tech Initiative, our Innovators Live Pitch Day, is going to be October 11th, which is coming up very soon, considering that we are almost at the end of September. Hard to believe how time is flying, but hope that you can join that event and be a part of the pitch day and hear some of the presentations. Women's Health Tech Wednesdays are every Wednesday from 12:30 to 1. They're 30 minutes of great conversations with women leaders in healthcare technology. And I hope you can join those as well. And then also would like to highlight our HITLAB collaboration with Versally. It's our innovation challenge for menopause innovation. The total cash prize amount is $50,000. So there'll be different prizes awarded. So definitely a huge opportunity to gain visibility for your innovation and potentially get some funding to move it forward. Our call for applications is open, so please apply today. And with that, I think we are now going to move to our next conversation with Anne Quick, who is with Garmin International, and she oversees strategic business-to-business partnerships. So I'd like to welcome Anne to the conversation.
Hey, Amy.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Let me just turn my video on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. Before we jump into some of the questions in this session, obviously I introduced you in your role at Garmin, but can you share a little bit more about your background, or is there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, sure. So I work within Garmin. I work for a team called Garmin Health. And as you said, we are the B2B arm of Garmin, but primarily focused on working with partners across the healthcare spectrum. We also cover areas outside of healthcare, but that's kind of the core focus for us. I've been with the team 8 years, and then in my role particularly, I focus on building our relationships with payers and with digital health platforms as well.
Awesome. And I have to just say, who would have thought all those years ago with Garmin, mapping and directions, that it would turn into what it is, broaden into what it is today. And I think it really speaks to the opportunity that we have to leverage technologies that were started somewhere else into healthcare. So congrats on really, driving that innovation. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So a couple questions for you. So as we're seeing health technology, the landscape evolve, how do you identify and forge these strategic business-to-business partnerships that are, going to align with your vision and where you want to go with your wearables and AI?
Awesome. Thank you so much for the question. In terms of kind of our focus in partnerships and how we identify and create new partnerships, I should probably step back and just the mission of our team is really to build the best hardware products that we can, to create a connected ecosystem of products that all seamlessly work together, and then really create software that's also helping to enable and detect significant medical conditions. So when we think about partnerships, we're really trying to stay true to that mission and find partnerships that really further that mission along. As I kind of briefly mentioned, my role on the team is leading our partnerships with payers and digital health platforms. So that's kind of broadly what I think about when I, try and identify and start relationships with new potential partners. And then beyond that, when we think about AI, we're really excited about the possibility of AI to help innovate through personalization. Health is so personal. You can't really have a one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare, and the ability for partnerships that deliver on personal health solutions and tailored experiences is something we're really excited about. We're doing that on our end, and we're looking for partners that can also kind of create that environment of personalization in healthcare. And so those are kind of some of the things that are in the back of my mind as I'm trying to identify and seek out new partnerships. And then when it comes to actually forging and creating those relationships, it's all about relationships and building relationships however you can, whether that's virtual or in person. Always prefer to do that in person if we can. But doing as much networking, whether again, that's at an event like this and being able to showcase what Garmin brings to the table through an event like this, through in-person events, trying to stay on top of the trends as much as possible, reading as much as you possibly can, staying on top of the studies that are going on, and then being active on LinkedIn. So I invite everyone, if there's interest, to talk after this, to connect on LinkedIn, because that's been a really awesome way to create those new relationships.
Well, I'll just repeat what I shared in an earlier session. That's an open invitation. So definitely take advantage of that very generous offer. That's great. Yeah, and again, it's all about collaboration. But so with these partnerships, can you share any sort of specific factors that you're thinking about when you're evaluating those potential partners? Obviously, not everything's going to be a good fit. So are there things that you can kind of weed out early on and then kind of refine over time? Anything you can share there?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're kind of broadly speaking, when we think about new partnerships, it's, does this partnership help improve our ecosystem of connected partners? We know what we do really well and what we bring to the table, which is we're creating the best in class hardware that we can. We're focusing on being able to detect and monitor different elements of your physiological state at any given time. And so we know what we do best, but we also don't do everything. And so we want to create partnerships with data-driven partners that are using analytics that really bring context to the physiologic data that we provide. So what you're looking at on a wearable is only, you can really only contextualize that in unless you have meaning and knowledge of what that actually can do for you. So knowing your sleep is great, but being able to get insights on how you can improve your sleep or how your sleep impacts other things that you're going through is really important. So we rely on partners to really bring context and further meaning to the data and metrics that our wearables provide. So assuming that a partner can do that, like those are some of the things we're looking for. And then furthermore, for us as an organization, data privacy and security is of the utmost importance. We're a global business. We do business in multiple different countries. And so there's a vast array of privacy laws that we want to make sure we're adhering to. And so, and also partnering with companies and organizations that value privacy and security is important to us as well.
Absolutely. And, speaking of that, how has your team, and can you share any challenges that you've had as it relates to the interoperability or the data integrations, when you're working with different partners on, these wearable tech projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of kind of interoperability, that's super important when we're thinking about our partnerships, because that is how they get access to this data and can really incorporate it into the programs with the goal of helping patients live better, healthier lives. So we have developed a full range of APIs and SDKs. These are different tools and mechanisms to get different types of data, different frequencies of data. And so it's that seamless exchange and offering kind of those simple ways to get access to that data is something that we feel is super important, and doing that a lot of which is free. And so, that I think is something that's super important. And then we also kind of have developed and further invested in our team so that we can not only provide access to ways to get the data, but then also support our partners that are integrating that data and, support and collaborate with them on, okay, is this working? How's this testing going? What can we do doing better? We're constantly taking the feedback of the developers that we work with from our partners. And, we're kind of keeping a running list of, what is it that they're looking for? What is it that we bring to the table that's really great, but what are some of the elements that are missing? What can we do better? And so there's a constant collaborative and iterative process with our teams working together. We work really closely with our partners developer, and so the developers from our partners, and we value that feedback so much. So it's that constant collaboration is really key. And then, always trying to improve on what we're doing our team is the team that manages our suite of APIs and SDKs. They're staying on top of the trends as well and trying to understand what are the elements that we are missing that could make our solution even better. And when we find something, we're not afraid to change our roadmap, add things, and they're dynamic in how they work so that we can bring the best solutions to the table that we possibly can.
I think that's great. I mean, we definitely had a theme of collaboration across the different speakers today. And this is another really great example, not only of partnering, but how you work together to improve the iterative process, the continuous feedback loop to optimize, which is really what this technology space requires to enable you to improve and optimize rapidly as well. So I think your sort of formula there is great. And again, I always love the collaboration piece that you can end up with something much better than some of your parts when you work together. So that's amazing. Can you talk a little bit through these partnerships? How have you ended up scaling and scaling your wearable technology, and how does that partnership also benefit really the ultimate goal is to scale?
Yeah, absolutely. Partnerships have been so critical to scaling our solutions and integrating those solutions into various healthcare settings. So in terms of taking a step back and thinking about our team, we're a very small but mighty team. We kind of operate like a startup within a larger organization. And so we're really scrappy. We have to, find these partnerships that allow us to expand our reach. So that's for us partners. We wish we could talk to every doctor, administrator, nurse, health professional out there. But again, we're small but mighty team. So these partnerships allow us to inform more health professionals about our wearables, the metrics they bring to the table, and then ultimately allow us to impact more patients. And partnerships also allow us to leverage a network of existing relationships as well, not just forming new ones, but being able to tap into the relationships that our partners have already formed, and bringing value to those partnerships for both our partner and for us can be really beneficial. And then in terms of, we talked a little bit about the integration piece, but being able to then enhance our integration because we are bringing value to our partner's solution because we're adding new elements into it, and they are bringing value to us in return. So we find that really, beneficial. And then again, I kind of referenced this already. We know what we're really good at, which is building the best hardware, making services that complement that hardware. But that is, what we know we do best. And we want to partner with the best in breed solutions that really bring full scope platforms that can have a greater impact on an individual's health and ultimately help them to achieve their health goals. And so we know that partners are critical for us to have that level of impact that we want.
That's fantastic. That's really great and very impressive. How can you share, I mean, obviously you've talked about the synergy and support, but can you give any specific examples of how your company has leveraged the partnerships that you've had to enhance specific capabilities and features of your wearable devices?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think what's really great and what I love, one of the things I love a lot about working at Garmin is that we are vertically integrated. So we can move very fast and make changes very quickly. And I think that's a competitive advantage. So when a partner does bring a great solution to us, something that we don't currently do, we can act really quickly and make changes. So we've done a lot of things. I think you talked about our developer programs. That's a constant example of how we're, a developer will say, hey, it'd be really valuable if we had this piece included, or we need it actually, at this frequency instead of this frequency, and that would really allow us to do X, Y, and Z with our solution. So that is a constant collaboration, constantly, taking that feedback into, I as we consider how we evolve the platform and making changes. But we've also done that with products as well. So we were working with a metabolic testing partner who had a lot of female patients that were working with them, and they really hated wearing like a regular chest strap. And based on a lot of that feedback we got from them, and then other partners that we worked with as well, we decided to create a new product. It's a heart rate monitor that actually clips onto a sports bra, so it doesn't have that really uncomfortable effect around your whole top. And so that was like one example. And then just improving sleep as well as another example. So a couple years ago with sleep, we did kind of awake, light, and deep classifications of sleep, and partners were constantly telling us like, we need more here. Sleep is a critical element of what we're looking for from Garmin. And using kind of that feedback, we brought changes to sleep, advanced sleep, bringing REM sleep in, doing updates to our algorithm to make it even a better quality indicator of your actual sleep, and then also bringing sleep metrics on the device directly instead of just on the companion app and the software that comes with it. So there's a lot of examples of constantly taking partner feedback into our minds and kind of making changes to improve what we offer.
Those are great. Thank you for the specific examples. It's always nice to hear that you get the specificity. As we close out, I have to say I'm seeing a lot of little hearts go up in the chat. So that's always fun to see, and obviously great conversation. And I have to say, I just go back to what I said at the beginning. It's just amazing to see, Garmin go from a navigation system from a few decades ago to major players in the healthcare space. I think it's a fabulous example of transference of the technology into healthcare. So I think it's great, and congrats on all your success. Before we sign off though, is there anything else you'd like to share before you go?
No, I would just, I guess the only comment I would have is just in your poll. I'm so glad you did that poll, because it's really encouraging to see how many people responded with either slightly or higher using wearables. And so I think that will only expand over time. And I look forward to connecting with a lot of you after the session today.
And thank you so much. I look forward to staying in touch, and be well. And again, she invited everyone to reach out on LinkedIn. So
thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Okay, so I think our final session for the afternoon, I have the pleasure of talking with Azadeh Desmalchi, who is the co-founder and CEO of VitalTracer. So I would love to welcome Azadeh to the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
Absolutely. And before we jump into the questions, is there anything else you'd like to share? I obviously introduced you, but is there anything else you'd like to share about who you are or VitalTracer before we get into the conversation?
Sure. I'm Azadeh, CEO and co-founder of VitalTracer. And VitalTracer, we are a medical device startup. So this is not a wellness, this is as a medical device, but it has a ECG sensor, an optical sensor to measure, and it goes with the ECG disposable, goes on a chest as a patient remote monitoring system. And we started with the children, and right now we are focusing on the children's sector, and more specifying niche market right now would be as hospital at home on oncology patients.
I love that idea of hospital at home. It's one of the trends that I think is so important when we think about mobility issues, transportation issues, and just general trying to get an appointment with a doctor in a clinic. So that's super exciting. And thank you for moving the needle in this very important space. So to have a couple questions here, how do you see wearables integrating with artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies to really enhance health outcomes and overall patient care?
Right. Right now, wearables are becoming a powerful tool by integrating AI. But to be honest with you, I think that it might take maybe 3-4 years from now to really using AI to go on that side, because the most challenged part of the wearables as a medical device is the data, input data. We need a very clear, crystal clear and pure data, because junk in an AI, then junk out in AI.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But this technology will be goes for personalized health insight in a real time. And instead of going to the doctor, it can predict lots of different, especially cardiovascular issues, or predicting some others like influenza and so on. So we can, to detect early warning sign of the health issue, we can shift from reactive to proactive healthcare, where interventions are triggered before a condition wars. And this is what we are doing also in a vital tracer. But for example, by monitoring a couple of minutes in a day for your ECG signals, you can predict a heart attack 5 years ahead. But this means that the person needs to use this technology for a couple of years. And that's why I say that AI can revolutionize, but not for now. It's more gonna coming in the next 3 to 4 years.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And, on that note, knowing that in order for AI to, become smart enough and collect enough information over the next few years to really be super effective in this space, just thinking about, user friendliness. How do you balance your innovation in the biosignal wearable space with user friendliness, and ensuring that they're both obviously accurate, technologically advanced and doing what they're supposed to do, but also accessible to your audience?
Right. And I want to emphasize that for the more than a century, for medical device, they really not using patient centralized to do that. Like for the Holter ECG, you have to wear like 12 or 24 leads with a bunch of tapes. It doesn't matter that it's not comfortable for you, and it doesn't matter that you have to wear that bulky device. And lots of, especially children, get bullied in school by using that. So as long as it's the device that engineer built, and I am one of those engineers, it's work. We don't care that you like it or not. It's gonna be good for your health. But now it's changing. Everything is changing, and they're giving more value of, okay, if we get the more value from the customers, more patient centralized, more nurse centralized, then it would be maybe even better. Patient can use that technology more often, so we can get the better insight informations from the patient and so on. And but to be honest with you, it's very difficult to. The only way is going to the different communities, going to the different hospitals, ask the nurses to use it, because as a medical device, the first user are nurses, and then the medical doctor who wants to get the decision, and then goes under the hands of patients, which is parents and children. So it is a very time-consuming and complicated, but that's the medical device area. It's the most challenges medical areas that I can see. Not even as a medical in any industry, I believe that the medical device, if hardware especially, then it has a software and AI, that would be the most complex solution.
Yeah, very, very complex. Absolutely. Especially anytime you're also capturing the data, just adds another layer to it. Something you mentioned in the last response, though, is, there's this, there was a time many years ago where wearing a heart monitor required all kinds of connection and bulkiness, and is very just uncomfortable, and made it very difficult to use. And now with the advancements that we're seeing, there's a trend to more user-friendly ways to capture this information, like with the wearables that you're developing and other things like that. That's obviously a huge trend that's evolving and changing the healthcare landscape. In this wearable space, what other sort of evolutions are you seeing in the next 5 to 10 years that could be driven by consumer expectations or just the sophistication of the technology? But any other trends you're seeing with wearables into the future?
I personally love to more focus on wearables as a medical device, not as a consumers, because the market of the consumers, we have like 5 big players that they are king, and it's very hard to beat them, in my opinion. So if anyone wants to work or focus, medical area is a game changer, because this is what the medical doctors also need to be sure about the accuracy of the results. So in this case, I believe the most accurate one would be implantable, or at least mini invasive, like a tattoo. But I believe that it would be more normal, because to be mini invasive, like the wearable device that they use it for glucose monitoring, it has a mini needle in it, but it can get the much more accurate result comparing of any devices on skin. And I believe that that would be the future, that people got used to it, and technology will move on as smart tattoos, which don't struggle with the battery charging of the technology. I have an Oura Ring, I have an Apple Watch, and I stopped using them after a couple of years because I get tired of charging them during day, before sleep, and wearing and those things. I believe that the gold standard would be implantable. And I know that it's super hard for the FDA to approval, but I believe that in the next 10 years, the winner is going to be implantable.
I think that's great. And how do you see Vital Tracer playing a role in that future?
That's a really good question. We are doing our best. So right now, because my own background, I have a bachelor, master, PhD all in biomedical engineering. So combination of medical and combination of engineering. And I'm so proud of our team, combination of medical doctors and engineers and multidisciplinary around us. So we always try to update ourselves with all new materials, new ICs, new technologies, new AIs to integrate and move forward with the new revolutionized technology. And this is what we are doing our best.
That's amazing. And congrats to you and your team for all your success, because I know it is hard and it is complicated, and you're not letting that stand in the way of moving things forward and changing the way healthcare is understood and addressed. So that's awesome. Based on your experience in this space, what are some of the, I mean, obviously we talked about how hard it is, but from your perspective, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you've encountered when you're trying to commercialize your biosignal wearables, and how are you kind of managing through those challenges?
So to be honest with you, I'm not on that sector completely yet exactly, but I believe that the distributing and selling the technology would be the hardest, especially that it's a medical device, medical distributors, but it's not only to find a good medical distributors always to sell the technology, but wearables as a medical device is a very novel things. Although that the wearable market is very well known, like Apple, Fitbit, Samsung, Garmin, they are awesome, doing awesome jobs, but I have a tachycardia. So my medical doctors have an issue to trusting those data as a wearable, since if they don't have FDA approval. And some of them that you remove them and you don't wear it for a couple of days or hours by different reasons. But I forgot your question. Oh my God, I blank out.
It was really just, some of the challenges that you've experienced in your, excuse me, excuse me, now I'm coughing, your commercialization process.
Yeah, so convincing hospitals that buying this new technology, how much time and energy, for example, saving for the nurses, how much bed will be free for them, how much, whether the hospital's gonna buy, whether we save money for them or creating money for them. And that's really hard to go one by one to each hospital And we have to run a pilot studies, and not all the hospitals are ready to use that. Even the physicians that we go with them, they don't know what they really expect or they should expect from this technology. So it's very fresh. No one's know. They know that all the governments, they know that the hospital at home, they have to run this pilot studies, but no one knows like which patient, how often you want to do these data. Do you want to share which kind of information to the parents or patients? It's like, do they need to hire a nurse to monitor like ICU? It's very vague for everyone, especially healthcare system, what they want and how they want. Like a reimbursement strategy, insurances, they don't know what to cover as a reimbursement, because okay, if it's a one device doing a multiple parameters monitoring, whether before that, whether like a Holter to monitor ECG or SpO2 for oxygen saturation, or the blood pressure for hypertension patients. Now they don't know that if medical doctor wants to prescribe this one for one parameters reimbursement. So no one knows exactly. They know this is what they want from the COVID, thanks to COVID, but it's not crystal clear for everyone what they want.
Yeah. When I think I've heard there was an old saying that, well, I don't know how old it is, but like, if you've seen one health system, you've seen one health system. You know, everybody, they all have their own sort of metrics and needs. And so it makes it very complicated for organizations like yourself to try to get in there and prove the value. And there's a lot that goes into it. But, you know, again, amazing work with VitalTrace. And I think you've really talked very eloquently about the challenges that you face, but the bravery that you also have it with your team to push through and drive the change that we need, because there is so much potential. It will work. It's just, you know, driving it forward and finding the right collaborators to do it. So amazing work with your organization. Before we sign off though, are there any last comments you'd like to share?
Not really, no. The other challenge that I can say, actually, it is about the FDA putting all different new rules and regulations, which is kind of delaying all the startups to move forward. And then it's okay with the old technologies that is in the market. So it's delaying and putting more hardship on startups, but this is what it is. We have to
keep up the good fight, because the old legacy systems need to be changed, and you're going to be doing, driving those changes. So congrats on that. And thank you so much for your time, and good luck. I look forward to staying in touch with you and watching your success continue.
Thank you, Amy. Have a great day.
You too. And now I'm going to hand it back to Stan he's going to be chatting with Charlene Jerome, who's the marketing manager at Sensoria Health. So Stan, I will hand it back to you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Amy. And what a great conversation and phenomenal second hour. And we are bringing it into the third hour here. We're really excited to kick things off with Sensoria, and then continue with Sam Shaw from Samsung, and then Tiffany Wu from 7Wire, and wrapping it up with not only Stephen from General Catalyst, one of the world's largest venture capital firms, but also, and especially leading digital healthcare, but also Chris Narayan from Medikarma, the avatar company, AI avatar company in healthcare that we have come to see some tremendous growth on. And as we kick things off, let's talk to Charlene for a minute. Charlene, first of all, if you could just give everybody a quick 1-minute thumbnail on your background and what you do, that would be great. You're on mute, Charlene.
Hi there. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Charlene Jerome. I'm the marketing manager for Sensoria Health. My background is I have an MBA from Texas Christian University with an emphasis in marketing. I did corporate marketing, as well as I taught as an adjunct professor at Western International University, both undergraduate and graduate marketing classes.
That's fantastic. And tell everyone a little bit about, again, we're talking today at the lab and in this symposium about technology, and as you know, the tech thread that we're seeing, adoption come into play here. And obviously you're a marketing manager at Sensoria, a leading digital health company that's seeing a nice amount of adoption increases across the ecosystem. And we'd love to hear more about how you've been able to use marketing in wearables and health tech, and what kind of strategies you've deployed, and what kind of challenges that you've seen, and with AI and smart clothing. So maybe let's kick it off with that.
Sure, absolutely. So from a marketing perspective, we recently launched an article on LinkedIn. It was called Harnessing the Power of AI and the Emergence of Beneficial Intelligence. What that means is that we at Sensoria Health are developing beneficial intelligence by leveraging both advanced algorithms, data analytics, and artificial intelligence, so that could empower researchers and healthcare systems to be able to analyze vast amounts of data, explore patterns, and then give quantified metrics. That's just one example of what we've been doing in this space. Sensoria specifically, what we have to deliver this beneficial intelligence is a truly wearable technology platform. We offer remote patient monitoring capabilities, and we have data analytics and predictive models so that we can not only improve outcomes, but really innovate in patient care and personalizing the healthcare industry.
Which is so important, because without a healthcare interface that personalizes with patients, patients really don't respond well to these sorts of digital interventions. And let's talk a little bit about some of the trends. Obviously, that's one of the key themes here this month in the symposium. But what are some of the key trends that you're seeing in wearable technology and AI that you really think are going to shape the future of health tech marketing, especially for companies like Sensoria?
Right. No, extreme rapid market growth has to be number one. So it's estimated right now that the artificial intelligence market globally is at just around $38 billion. It's projected to be at 260 billion plus by 2032, which shows not only are patients and consumers more acceptable to wearing these devices, but also just leads to lots of innovation and exploration in this space. Number two, I would say, would be personalized medicine, as well as predictive analytics, right? Because if we are able to use wearables to detect diseases earlier, and then hopefully, improve the outcomes as well. And lastly, I would have to say integration with healthcare systems is going to be extremely important. We just heard from the last lady talk about that as well. And that's going to increase and help their workflows at those places, and then just give them more comprehensive patient care.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. So that's really good to see. And I think that also speaks to just how evolved you are on the marketing side of things, which is wonderful.
Thank you.
And so when you look to differentiate smart clothing and any kind of AI-driven product from competitors, what are some of the key elements that you would share with our audience here?
Sure. I love this question because we truly are a differentiated company. So my co-founders, Davide, who our CEO, and Maurizio Meccano, they spent about almost 45 to 50 years combined at Microsoft in different roles. And what you learn when you're at Microsoft is that you build platforms. So Sensoria Health has no desire to just have a single siloed product. But what we did was we created a technology platform, and it's based on this little device here, which is called Sensoria Core. It's a 9-axis IMU, or inertial measurement unit, which means, Dan, that we have an accelerometer, a gyroscope, and a magnetometer, so we can literally see movement in space. One of the products that we launched was our Smart Sock, which is here. So we have embedded textile pressure sensors. They're very thin, they're washable, they're wearable, and this little device communicates wirelessly via Bluetooth. We have our own customized mobile applications, as well as an cloud infrastructure on the Microsoft Azure HIPAA compliant cloud. So when I say we truly are a platform company, we are that. So we use this Sensoria Core device in each of our products, albeit in different form factors, but it's the same technology. So that's how we can rapidly innovate and prototype within 8 to 12 weeks, which I don't think a lot of companies can say that. So that makes us differentiated that way. What makes me get excited every day, right?
No, that's fantastic. And when you look in the future of what you're doing, what are some of the key priorities that you're seeing for marketing and tele-rehab and smart clothing and the like?
Yeah, so again, we need to focus on personalization and data-driven insights. Also, remote care and accessibility. So we want to make healthcare more accessible, especially to underserved populations or in remote areas. And so obviously the adoption of telehealth will help that. And then addressing data privacy and concerns. And how we're going to do that is we'll take a multi-tiered approach, right? So it's creating content, so educational content, both for the consumer and for the professional. We'll also in industry trade shows and conferences to expand our growth and as well as talk about our technologies and present those. We're fortunate to have won a R01 grant with USC Keck Medicine, Dr. David Armstrong, arguably the #1 in the diabetic foot ulcer community, as well as Bijan Najafi, arguably the #2, who just took a position with UCLA. So in that 5-year grant from the NIH, we have a dissemination plan. And so that will incorporate both the clinical studies that have been done, poster presentations, talks at different wound care clinics, as well as, so yeah, and of course, engaging social media strategies. So that will always be key for us as well. I think I hit on, and also existing and leveraging strategic partnerships and collaborations to better broaden the reach.
Very incredible. And we've got a few more minutes, and we're getting a lot of questions from the audience on LinkedIn and about the tech stack that you use for marketing. A lot of folks, especially startups, maybe founders that haven't done a lot of marketing before, they're curious about that and they're wondering how that actually works. So tell the audience a little bit about the technologies that you're currently using for things like email campaigns, maybe something for SEO, or maybe something for social media, that sort of tech stack.
Yeah, so great question. We have in the past used different platforms. So we've used HubSpot before for email marketing. We've also done MailChimp in the past. We are working on revamping our website. So right now we need to do a relaunch of the website before we get it more into like SEO and SEM. So so from a company perspective, I'm a one-person marketing department. We also have 2 other people that are on the business side, my VP of Business Development, John Carpenter, and then Davide, our CEO. Everybody else is some type of multidisciplinary engineer. So we're limited in the amount of resources that we can allocate to different marketing platforms. So sorry, no, it's probably not the answer that anybody wanted, but that's the fact of the matter. So
yeah, no, that's pretty common. Yeah, no, we see a lot of that for sure. So, you know, I certainly can understand that. In terms of the future of how you're going to put things together to better market to buyers of either smart clothing or AI or the combination of both, talk a little bit about that. What does the future of marketing look like based on what you're seeing and how what you're seeing growth on the technology side, but also based on the buying market? Where do you guys see the focus of your marketing efforts going over the next 3 years?
Sure. So we're again a different type of company. So we're actually a B2B2C. So that's business to business, business to consumer. So we have kind of two angles. On the business to business side, we leverage our strategic partners. So for instance, with the diabetic foot boot, we partnered with a company called Defender Ops. And so we can leverage their sales channel and things of that nature. So yeah, so finding buyers so we can go B2C. So a couple of our products, the smart socks, which were originally introduced for runners, are still available on our website today. The Sensory Mat, which is for spinal cord users or just wheelchair users in general, that helps them to remind them to do their pressure relief activities so that they can reduce risk of ulceration. So that's a B2C as well. We could do B2B with our partnerships at Rancho Los Amigos National Rehabilitation Center in Downey, California. So there's lots of ways that we can leverage and go B2B and B2C. We'll do different LinkedIn marketing campaigns, things of that nature as well. So
yeah, no, I could see that would make a lot of sense. And how much of your budget do you put into SEO, you know, search engine optimization, even for a B2B2C product like yours? It has got to play a role these days, because you want people to see Sensoria when they Google smart clothing or smart socks or whatever it might be. So how much of a budget do you put into SEO versus maybe email campaigns or social media?
Yeah, it's very important. Again, we're trying to revamp our website to be more relevant, and so we don't want to throw a lot of money into something that we will need to rebuild again. So it's minimal right now, but we know that it needs to be a focus.
It's fantastic. And when you look at the actual conference spend for marketing and using, are there AI tools that you're using or any kind of technology that you're using for conferences and for face-to-face meetings, in-person meetings, or are you strictly staying digital and really optimizing your budget?
We're really digital and optimizing budget. Yes.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart. Yeah, I think that we're seeing a lot of startups in that way. Well, thank you very much today, Charlene. Really appreciate your participation. Really just incredible advice for startups that are navigating the tumultuous waters of really lean marketing and just making sure that they can do what they have to do with all the different marketing tools that are out there, and whether it's HubSpot rather, or using HubSpot, or Salesforce or Zoho, and how to do it with either your Gmail, your Google Mail Corporate Enterprise Edition or Microsoft 365 Edition. There's a lot of choices that founders and startups are having to decide on, and getting your guidance here is just absolutely wonderful. So have a great day. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much. Feel free, anyone, to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks.
That's fantastic. And what a tremendous amount of detailed information from her. Just really, really helpful. Next up, we have Sam Shaw from Samsung, and he is a lead with partnerships and business development at Samsung Health. And as you know, Samsung has been taking a bigger and better participation amount of healthcare here. So before we jump in and talk to Sam, we are going to be talking about the code word number 2 for the day today, which is healthcare. If you go to the website that was just on your screen momentarily, there you go, you'll be able to enter in, if you click on that link, the word healthcare, and then you or your colleague or coworker or friends or family can jump into the summit. You can win a membership to the Breakthrough Alliance, the global network that is now changing not just the country, but now the world. Again, the Breakthrough Alliance is a consortium of 7 Wire Ventures. It's a consortium with Merck Global Funds. It includes ventures from Sanofi and certainly New York Presbyterian and United Healthcare's Optum subsidiary. And so the Breakthrough Alliance is an exciting group of executives and leaders from around the world who are participating to help not just find the most interesting and the most impactful digital health technologies, but also deploy them and then share the insights on how easily they could be deployed so that people can have a better experience, and people, specifically executives, can have a better experience deploying patient-facing technologies and really making sure that the digital transformation happens as optimally as possible. So next up, now we're going to talk to Sam. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I am good. I am good. And which part of the world are you in today?
I'm in Mountain View, California.
All right. Absolutely. Silicon Valley. That's wonderful. And if you could, just let's start off just giving our audience from around the world an idea of 1 minute on your personal journey.
I'm a partnership and business development consultant at Samsung, located at Mountain View, California, focusing on digital health. With over 20 plus years of experience in strategic alliance across sector as digital health, AI, cloud computing, and also a track record of driving innovation and growth, and a lot of experience and leadership roles at Samsung, Digital Health, Microsoft, Philips, and startups, and also telecommunications.
That is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. So that's exciting. You must be a very busy man, Sam. There's a lot going on today in what you're doing. So I got to imagine it must be nice to be at home for a day when you're probably traveling every other day of the week. I think our audience, every time we get together during our symposia each month during the year, people are more and more interested in partnerships and business development. One of the trends that the lab has seen over the last 5 years is that the companies that are really scaling and sustaining are the ones who built the best partnerships because those are bringing the most consistent revenue. So if you could talk a little bit about what you do as a business and partnership lead at Samsung and how what you're doing is aligning with Samsung's vision for advancing technology in healthcare, particularly in what we all read about every day in the world of wearables and AI.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I focus on driving strategic collaborations between Samsung Health and key players in the health tech ecosystem, including healthcare providers, pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare technology firms. My work, starts with, involving, identifying, and cultivating partnership that align with Samsung's mission, which is, expanding the utilization of Samsung technologies, devices, and solutions to integrate the wearables and AI into healthcare solutions, improving patient outcomes, and enabling more personalized care. I lead initiatives that leverage Samsung's cutting-edge wearable technology and AI capabilities to support research, clinical trials, and real-time health monitoring, ensuring that our digital health innovations are grounded in the needs of consumers, patients, and healthcare providers. So these roles align directly with Samsung's vision to revolutionize healthcare by combining advanced technologies like AI and wearables to deliver actionable insights and preventive care solutions. Whether working on decentralized clinical trials with pharma partners or collaborating with healthcare providers on AI-driven diagnostic tools or developing algorithms for health data analysis, I focus on creating synergies that expand Samsung's presence in the digital health space. And my goal is to help Samsung not only innovate, but also position itself as a leader in delivering scalable, impactful health solutions that transform the way healthcare is delivered globally.
Which is spot on, because I think right now what we're seeing is an incredible drive toward global innovation and global adoption of these technologies. And so seeing this kind of global strategy for Samsung makes a ton of sense. And what types of partnerships are crucial from your perspective for driving this kind of innovation into the digital health space, because it's such a unique area? And how do you identify and cultivate these kinds of strategic partnerships when you're just starting out?
So strategic partnerships that drive innovation and growth in digital health space typically involve collaborations between healthcare providers, pharma companies, technology firms, and academic institutions. So partnerships with healthcare systems and providers are crucial for integrating digital health solutions like wearables and AI into clinical care, while pharmaceutical collaborations enable innovations in decentralized clinical trials, real-time patient monitoring, and data collections for chronic conditions. So partnership with tech companies and startups accelerate the development of AI-driven platforms and health data analytic tools, while academic partnerships provide the research expertise needed for validation and clinical trials. So we work with the larger, the tier one, research institution for the research. And to the second point is to identify and cultivate this partnership. It is essential to align with the organization that share a vision for innovation in healthcare. This involves conducting market research, networking at industry events, and identifying key players in health tech, AI, and clinical research. So HLTH is coming soon. And then cultivating partnership begins with pilot projects. And this is how we begin the partnership kickoff, and also the co-development initiatives, allowing potential partners to see the value in collaboration. Building trust is a key, and real-world evidence, and creating mutual value, and aligning on long-term goals, and ensure that this partnership lead to impactful and scalable innovations in digital health.
That's a really, really powerful way to put that. And I think there's a lot of folks that are probably taking a lot of notes right now, because I think that when people are looking at partnerships, they're looking at a lot of what you just talked about, which is also bringing up the topic of challenges. And so if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, talk about what are some of the challenges that you're seeing when you're trying to establish these partnerships with the health tech sector in digital health versus maybe some of the others that you've seen in the past. And then not only what are the challenges, but how are you resolving these?
I think it's an excellent question, which I face every day. So one of the common challenges I came across in establishing partnerships in healthcare sector is aligning the different priorities and timelines of stakeholders across industries. Just for example, healthcare providers may focus on clinical efficacy and patient outcomes, while technology companies prioritize innovation and scalability. And pharmaceutical companies are concerned with regulatory compliance and data integrity. So these varying objectives can make it difficult to create a unified strategy that satisfies all parties. So to address this, I ensure that the communication is clear from the outset, setting well-defined goals, timelines, and expectations that meet the needs of each partner. So every partner brings unique value. So by emphasizing the mutual benefits and aligning on shared value creation, I foster collaboration that balances both short-term deliverables and also long-term strategic goals. Another challenge is navigating the complex regulatory landscape that governs the health tech sector. So compliance with privacy laws such as HIPAA and gaining regulatory approval for new technologies can sometimes, slow down the partnership progress. And I'm experiencing with, certain sectors. To overcome this, I work closely with legal and regulatory teams to ensure that all partnerships adhere to the necessary guidelines from the beginning. Additionally, I often leverage Samsung's established global presence and expertise in navigating different regulatory environments to guide partners through the approval process more efficiently. So by addressing these challenges proactively and maintaining open lines of communication, I help ensure that partnership in the health tech space move forward smoothly and achieve meaningful outcomes.
That's absolutely spot on. And I think we've got about time for one more question. And, again, this is actually, I think we need to wrap up. I'm getting cues from the production team that we're good. So Sam, thank you very much for your time today and really just giving a lecture here, a good advice, good words of wisdom here for all of our audience on how to develop successful and sustainable partnerships, which, again, from what we're seeing in the ecosystem over the last 5 years, are really behind the most successful digital health companies, really those strong partnerships. So enjoy your day today in Mountain View, and hopefully we'll see you back on the program sometime soon. Take care.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Bye.
And just a reminder to everybody in our community that this is one of the most exciting challenges that have come into the digital health ecosystem over the last year, which is the Versally Innovation Challenge. And we're all excited. It's $25,000 cash, first place prize, and then a bunch of prizes, second, third, fourth, sixth, seventh. I mean, there's a whole bunch of prizes coming after kind of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 as well. So just really want to make sure everyone knows about this. It is not just about Versally and what's going on with women in menopause. It's women's health, anything that could be adjacent to women, that could be supportive to women who are going through menopause. It could be something that's in AI. It could be a digital avatar that helps women in the menopause. It could be, but it is something that we do want to see a prototype, whether it's a data model, an analytics model, an AI model, some kind of prototype actually working. So that's important on the score sheet, but it is a lot of non-dilutive capital. Hopefully you guys have either a good product that can be pushed into here, or something that would be directly related to here, or someone who could also use the funding. So we love these non-dilutive prizes for our founders so that they are staying intact and able to get some extra money to do really good things, like what Sam was just talking about, and developing new partnerships and new alliances. So anyway, the next guest on the program today is someone who is extremely knowledgeable, not only about women's health, but about digital health. She is a principal at 7 Wire Ventures, who everyone in our community should know about. If you don't know about it, you probably are new to our community. They are one of the leading digital health venture funds in the world. They were behind the start and the scaling of Livongo that sold to Teladoc for $18.2 billion. And they're also the primary factory, if you will, and brainstorm around the newest unicorn from in healthcare, Transcarent. And so Tiffany has a tremendous interest in women's health and is on the board of the Women's Health Tech Initiative, which, if you'd like to join, contact either Ansley Bowen or Amy West from the lab as well. Tiffany, welcome to the program.
So much, Stan, for having me on and for saying all those kind words. I apologize that my background looks like it's reversed, but everyone should know what it says. But thank you very much.
It's not reversed to everyone else. It's good with us.
Okay, great. Perfect.
So you're good. And first of all, it's just great to have you on the program, and just excited to meet you. And again, everyone who wants to meet Tiffany, do look at her LinkedIn. It's on the chat. First, if you could tell us a little bit about your investment philosophy when it comes to early stage digital health companies. I think our community would love to know about what you personally are thinking, and then also 7 Wire as a firm is thinking when it's looking at supporting and really having a connected healthcare consumer product line.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are at 7 Wire, we are a healthcare venture fund. So we only look at healthcare opportunities. And even within healthcare, we're really focused on digital health and tech-enabled healthcare services investments. Our investment thesis is pretty straightforward, I think, and it's really centered around consumer centricity and making sure that healthcare consumers are equipped to make decisions that engender a better experience with better outcomes at lower costs. So everything that we invest in has to directly touch a patient, is another way to put it. We're primarily Series A investors, although we will do occasional seeds and sometimes even company formations. And then we can stretch all the way up to Series C for new investments, but primarily we're Series A, and we almost always lead or co-lead our investments. So we take a pretty active role on boards, and we generally can be pretty helpful with commercial strategic relationships as well.
Yeah, that's clearly what we've seen in our working with 7 Wire over the last 10 years, which is amazing. Just the amount of support that the firm does give to its portfolio companies, its partners. And so our audience would love to know more about your criteria and what are you looking for when evaluating any kind of potential investment in digital health, or especially those focused on wearables and AI, which is the theme for today's symposium, and connected health solutions. What kind of criteria do you like to see when evaluating these folks?
Obviously, it's a much more complex decision, but I would say core to kind of how we evaluate new opportunities is maybe 5 things. One, of course, we have to look at the market and think about, is the total addressable market large enough? And completely understand, especially for early stage companies starting out and carving out a niche, but understanding that after that kind of initial crawl stage, that there are things to walk and run towards. So better understanding the market opportunity and the size around that is really important to us. And we also take into account whether or not there are regulatory or other kind of industry tailwinds that can help make the go-to-market strategy a lot more efficient or faster. As we all know, sales cycles within healthcare are always long. So whenever we feel like there are good tailwinds that can help accelerate that, it's always helpful for us. We also spend a lot of time just understanding how your solution is differentiated and what your competitive moat is. Because we're very focused on healthcare, I would say we tend to see a lot of companies that are probably doing similar things or adjacent things to what you are building. So a lot of times we really do want to understand, why is your solution different from your core competitors or even your adjacent competitors? And then we spend a lot of time on business model. What kind of traction, growth do you have? Even if it's early stage, what are the pilots that you've signed? How have they been going? And then also importantly, especially if we're talking about wearables or some kind of device component, just how should we understand the unit economics? I think understanding that is very important to us as we think about just the scalability and the sustainability of your business. The next one is kind of maybe a nice to have, but it's always helpful if you have some kind of demonstrable ROI in terms of cost savings or better patient outcomes. This is probably not a first conversation, but further on, we do kind of want to understand what are some of the proof points. And then last thing, we always love getting to know the team. Obviously, given that we're pretty active investors, we do want to make sure that we can have a productive and helpful and positive relationship, and understanding the team dynamics is super important to us as well.
That's absolutely amazing. It's so obviously very thoughtful and a really detailed analysis set that you're walking through when you look at these companies. One of the things you talked about was empowering consumers. How do you assess whether a digital health company is really empowering consumers to make that informed decision and stay connected to their healthcare data?
Yeah, I think a lot of that tends to tie back into some of the ROI or some of the outcomes that we're seeing, even if it's on a small population. So because of that, we do tend to invest in companies that already have some commercial relationships with enterprises, because it allows us to answer that very question. And so a lot of times we are looking for NPS scores, just kind of customer feedback on the user perspective. But then we're also trying to see if there are clinical outcomes that you can point us towards. Best case scenario is if you are able to provide a study that's done in conjunction with a customer that's been signed off by the customer. And again, that all sounds very formal, but oftentimes it is okay if it's a small cohort of patients, as long as the leading indicators are positive. I think that goes a long way for us.
That's a big one to look at. Yeah, that's obviously got a lot of weight behind it. And so last question as we wrap up, and I think probably the biggest question of the day, which is, Tiffany, you're seeing some amazing companies. You got not only what you've already started and what 7Wire has in its portfolio, which are some of the clear leaders in digital health, and the win rate with what you're doing is stunning. But when you look at advice and you start talking about with folks and entrepreneurs that pull you aside and they ask for advice, in this ecosystem and in this current time frame, it's a tricky labyrinth that these companies have to go through. What kind of advice are you giving entrepreneurs that are trying to develop digital health solutions that support the informed and connected consumer?
Yeah, I think there's maybe two. I would say the first one is, a lot of times during pitches, I often find myself wishing that companies would spend a little bit more time talking about differentiator from competitors and really helping illustrate what you think the right competitive set is, both direct competitors and maybe adjacent competitors that may be coming into your space. I think the more well-informed you can make us, the better, because you don't want us to make assumptions of who your competitors are. And a lot of times for investors in a first conversation, it's very fast and it's very easy for us to misunderstand what you are building and what your competitive set is. So taking, just a couple minutes to really explain that out to us goes a long way, because a lot of times those preconceived notions can be really hard to erase once it sets into our mind. I think the second thing is, even for early stage companies, really understanding the unit economics is also really important to us, especially in this market environment. And yes, I think the market is getting better. However, I would say for all of our companies, we are very focused on scalability and sustainability. And so understanding how the gross margins will eventually help make your business get to break even. I think even at the earlier stage of companies, that's super important to us and becoming just table stakes for us as we start understanding businesses. So I wouldn't underestimate understanding those gross margins even in early days.
That's great advice, and that is so true that, you know, those early models really do, unless they're massively restructured, do tend to scale the way they started early on. So really well done. Thank you, Tiffany, so much for joining us today, and
Thank
really
you,
looking
Stan.
forward to working with you. We're looking forward to working with you on the Women's Health Tech Initiative Board.
Thank you very much.
Take care. All right. That is wonderful. Next up, we have very much coincidentally, by the way, this is not something we master planned out here. One of 7Wire's partners in a lot of investments and a lot of work in helping really improve the national health ecosystem, the global health ecosystem. And when it comes to co-investing in different digital and digital health assets, is General Catalyst, and someone who is a leader there as an executive in residence, and just another great opportunity for our community to get extraordinary insight on what is actually driving today's funding environment. And we're going to talk today with Stephen Kolasko about investing in innovation, and from his perspective, what kind of strategies for growth in health tech, wearables, and AI are leading the way at General Catalyst and healthcare in general. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Thanks for joining today.
It's great to be with you today. Thanks.
Yeah, it really is amazing. The work that you've done, your career, just looking through your LinkedIn page, is extraordinary. And for the audience who wants to take a look at Stephen's LinkedIn, please do. It's in the chat. And again, would love to have you describe a little bit about what an executive in residence at General Catalyst, one of the world's leading venture funds and certainly one of the biggest in digital healthcare, does when you support the firm's focus on early stage growth investments in health tech.
Yeah, so I've spent 40 years as CEO and leader in the most risk-averse sector of the world, which is large academic medical centers. Most recently, I was president and CEO of Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health. And we tried to differentiate ourselves. We basically said we're going to be a 200-year-old academic medical center thinking like a startup company. And through that, that's where I met Heyman Taneja. And in 2020, we wrote a book called On Healthcare, a Manifesto for Health Assurance. And in essence, what it came down to is that Heyman said, you know, we don't want to just talk about this stuff, and we don't want to just invest in companies that are creating point solutions. We want to be a catalyst to really create health assurance, healthcare at any address in this country. So after 9 years, I left Jeff and basically worked with Heyman and in the companies that are really creating platforms. And I'll just give you just a couple examples that just get me incredibly excited. So some of it is where healthcare is out of reach. So if you think about companies like CityBlock, you know, that are going after the most underserved population. There's a company, Equip, which is going after folks with eating disorders. Involved with a company, Genial, which is going after folks with neurodiversity. Those are literally the kind of things that people say, well, you can't really, you know, transform that, number one. And if you do, that's never going to get investment. Well, clearly they are. And then so very involved with something that really started at Jefferson called Strongline. We spent 40 years, in essence, lying to doctors and nurses that technology would make their life easier, starting with the EHRs, the epidemic. And, you know, and now we're actually creating some of those things that will do that. So Strongline is a model for nurses that if they're feeling insecure, has a GPS-enabled device that actually helps them. Comure is another platform that's doing that. So I think the real sort of headline is going from point solutions to platforms, because health system CEOs are tired of having to put all the Lego pieces. I used to have 100 people pitch me a month, and they were great companies. But I said, well, you know, I'd have to spend all the time saying, if I put this together and this together and this together and this together in women's health, maybe I'd have a company. But clearly, I think what we're starting to see, at least at GC, is partnering with health systems and seeing what they need.
That is so true. And if you look at what Seven Wire and General Catalyst did when they built up Livongo, they moved from Livongo as a wireless glucometer that was a point solution to turning it into a wellness platform and an actual platform entirely. So that was a great story, just in looking at a point solution and moving it to a platform over the course of that 10-year period.
Yeah, the genius of Livongo, and what I spend most of my time thinking about is 97% of people in the United States of America don't want to wake up in the morning and think they're a patient. They want to be a person who can thrive without healthcare getting in the way. So, you know, we were one of the initial partners of Livongo, and the concept was, hey, you know, Steve, you do a great job if a patient needs an office, needs an urgent care center, needs an emergency room, needs a hospital. That's not how they want to wake up. So how about if I'm their invisible friend in diabetes, and then I'll send them to you when you need that. That's really where healthcare has to go. If you came to my office when I was CEO of Jeff, I had this big sign that I hope 5 years from now, when Elon Musk brings people from Mars to Philadelphia and they say, "Where's Jefferson?" You can't define that. I mean, Jefferson on my phone, or Jefferson partnering with Livongo, or Jefferson partnering with Camure, or Jefferson at home. Oh, you mean the place where really, 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 really sick people go? I think that's still a 10th of Walnut. So we don't call ourselves hospital systems anymore. We call ourselves health systems, but we define ourselves by where we fail to keep people healthy. So I think what General Catalyst is doing, and you've probably read that they're also acquiring a health system, Summa Health, to prove that they can do that. But what they're doing with our partners, and Jefferson was one of them, is really not just saying, here's 180 companies that we've invested in, but here's how we can work together to transform healthcare on behalf of your patients.
That's it. That's so on the mark. And I think the audience here today really is going to appreciate that. And tell us a little bit about what some of the big factors are that you consider when you're evaluating an asset in health tech startups. And, you know, particularly when we look at, you know, what the theme is today, which is, you know, wearables, AI, and other emerging technologies. What are you looking at? What kind of factors do you look at?
Yeah, I've gotten very involved in the wearable space. And I think, look, I mean, I start off with this premise. My car gets better care than I do, because literally my car is sending seamless 24/7 information. And when I get back home to Miami, you know, my car's gonna say, "Hey, Steve, while you were away, my right front passenger tire got a little low. Could you fill it up?" Meanwhile, I'm gonna have a physical exam 2 weeks from now, and my doctor's going to tell me what my calcium score is, what my blood pressure is, what my labs are, and this is what I should do for the next 18 months. Well, we have no idea what I should do for the next 18 months as a 70-year-old, right? So I think where we will move, I think what we'll look at is the wearables today. I worked with Apple in their first digital health piece. It'll be looked at as the first iPod compared to the iPhone. So I think what we're developing, and I'm involved in some of them. The former CEO of Jawbone has created something, for example, where we'll continue to send seamless data 24/7. And then the question is, how do you make that actionable? How do you make sure that the patient is getting the right information? And more of it will be at home. I'm an obstetrician. I was involved in a company that was allowing people to get electronic fetal monitoring at home. Well, that's a game changer, because underserved folks can't get to the hospital 3 times a week to get non-stress tests, so they end up literally having premature labor, et cetera. So I think the whole concept of bringing the rest of the consumer world into healthcare through wearables and through at-home type devices, more than just the RPMs that exist today, will really be probably the biggest change that we'll see in the next 3 to 4 years.
It's incredible, and that's what we're seeing as well. And so when you take a look at the metrics that companies are using, and we'll wrap up on this question, but what metrics and indicators are you using to understand how successful your investments in digital health companies have been, and whether they're aligning with General Catalyst's overall investment goals?
Yeah, well, General Catalyst Investment Committee obviously has, you know, some very, 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 you know, well thought out analytics as to those things. But I think what's critical about GC and the responsible innovation piece is, frankly, also making sure that we're making a difference, that we're following the tenets of the book that we wrote, and that the companies that we're doing together in toto are literally getting into the concept of social determinants, predictive analytics, population health, and that kind of thing. So literally, I think one of the things that differentiates GC is that sort of bringing together those disparate companies into an ecosystem and creating its own ecosystem. And I think that's what's behind Health Assurance Partners. The 20 health systems that have decided to partner with us is about almost 18% or even a little bit more of every patient is part of a health assurance partner. And then the most recent thing that Mark Harrison is running with HATCO around actually acquiring an IDN and sort of taking that next step, improving that we're not point solutions, that we're really creating platforms to make doctors, nurses, and patients' lives improved.
That's phenomenal. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today, and looking forward to having you back on the program. It's just these insights are tremendously helpful to our community to better understand whether they should be working with General Catalyst and if it's a good fit, and they really do need that kind of guidance, especially in today's rigorous funding environment. So thank you for joining us today.
And thanks, Dan, for everything you folks do at HIT.
Thank you. Take care. So again, we have one last giveaway for the HITLAB community. We're always excited to do this. And it's all about just clicking on the link in the chat and adding in the code word fall. This is again, the opportunity for a free membership to the Breakthrough Alliance, which is the global consortium, including 7Wire, Merck Global Fund, New York City Economic Development Corporation, and many other, almost 24 other major groups within the healthcare consortium around the country, around the world. So add in there, click on the link, add in there, and let's hope to see some of you at the summit in December at the Microsoft Tech Center in Times Square, and see you joining the Breakthrough Alliance with some of these other phenomenal people. And speaking of phenomenal people, the last person, not the least person of the day, is Chris Narayan, who is the chairman, founder, CEO of MediKarma, someone who has a really extraordinary experience as a startup and an exit veteran. And he is going to walk us through the AI and avatar tool that they've developed at MediKarma. Chris, good to see you. How are you?
My pleasure. Stan, can you see my video okay?
It looks like it's coming in a little hazy, so I'm not sure if the production team can clean that up, but you can just put your name on the screen for right now if you want, until we figure out how to resolve. But in the meantime, I think you have an amazing avatar, and I think really what our audience would like to do is have see what you're developing. You're a startup veteran, so you know what you're doing to build and scale companies and exit. And so what we'd like to do is just, if you could walk us through certainly MediKarma and Jill, and if you can share some of what you're doing on the screen, that would be great. If not, just tell us how it's going.
Absolutely. So let's first, glad to be back here. I feel like HITLAB is like kind of a home. We brought this product out almost 1.5 years back in one of the HITLAB symposiums. And the audience reaction gave me so much energy, I went back to work to improve the product. My background, to introduce myself, I've spent about 38 years in technology. A lot of experience in consumer marketing and consumer psychology. So when I came to look at this from a healthcare perspective, the problem I was trying to solve was, how do I motivate everybody in this room to take better care of themselves? How do I inspire you to get more healthy? That was the problem I was initially starting to work on. But it so happened, if I put patients in the center and inspire them to get healthy, virtually every participant in the ecosystem payer, provider, self-insured employer, all benefit from cost of care reduction. So it so turned out, which I heard from a ex-CFO of Epic at one point, if you put patients in the center, inspire them to get stronger, healthier, then that may be the way to solve this, out of control cost that's growing in the healthcare. So let me share my screen with you. So what inspired me when I got started here was, is it possible to create a product that is as attractive as TikTok or Instagram, that you want to go back and use it every day, but with a small twist? Can I make this product so that the more you use the product, the healthier you get? So this journey over the last 3 years has taken us where we are engaging with patients and customers right now. But Medikarma is the first company that can actually work with payers and providers, provide a full risk assessment of your patient population, then show you how, if we engage with those patients and drive them towards preventive care, we can not only make them healthy, but can get your cost of care down. How do we fit in the market? So in healthcare right now, you have a bunch of companies that's focused on provider-patient interaction, like Ambiance, Nabla, Suki. You have Hippocratic AI that's focused on creating virtual nurses. What Medikarma does is works with patients and focuses on preventive care. How do we do this? As just to recap what we talked a couple of years back, as you are now, we are talking, if you say you want to use Medikarma, within 35 seconds to a minute, I create an avatar of you. I can go get your medical records from any provider that you've been using, any EMR company that has your data, with just your name, date of birth, and your address, completely frictionless. We bring this information and we display it on the screen as a set of check engine light, green, orange, and red. What are the chances of you getting a cardiac event in the next 10 years? What are the chances of your kidneys getting in trouble over the next 7.5 years? So we give you a percentage. The point here is we are trying to show you the weakest link in your chain and inspire you to take action. Couple of the features I'll quickly go through. We created a score, something that we were inspired by other guys like Credit Karma, so that we can tell you, you are at 600 today. We want you to come back and see what your score is tomorrow. In fact, if you talk to Jill, ask her, hey, Jill, what should I do to get my score from 650 to 660 tomorrow? She gives you a very crisp answer. 3 things you can do to get your score up. The interesting thing about the score is we partnered with Elevance Health, Blue Cross Anthem, previously known. We did a study over 65 million de-identified patients. And over 4 months, we were surprised to see the score that I was showing you was correlating with the claims data from Elevance, about 90% average, 95% for people who are sick, about 85% people who are healthy. So basically the message is, if you're an insurance company, if you bring your patients and give to Medikarma, we can tell you which patients are going to likely file more claims and take your budget. If you intervene and put those patients to work with clinical staff, the more they work with Medikarma, the more they talk to Jill AI, the healthier you get. That's a proposition. So let me quickly summarize. Jill AI is the primary part of this product. You can ask Jill any question you want, whether what breakfast I should eat today or how am I doing for the last month. It has some concierge services that's going to be introduced in the future, such as triage or pharmacy prescription refills, making appointments. But the most important feature that we are deploying right now is the health coach. It's called Lifestyle Jill, focused on lifestyle medicine. What we do here is we understand for lifestyle medicine, we are focused on improving your insulin resistance. We work with your clinician. They tell us what they recommend for your diet or exercise that you see their patient discovery. We work with the patient data pipelines, what's happening with the wearables, what is your activity, how's your stress, how are you sleeping. So a combination of this data combined with your personal preference on what you like for cuisine, what kind of diet you actually like, what kind of exercise you like, jogging versus running. Based on this, Jill creates a personalized task. Short list of 3 things to do. If you do these 3 things, she'll come back and show you how your health is changing. Let me show this in a more what you see form. In the Lifestyle Jill deployment, we are basically focused on your activity, diet, sleep, and bonus. Every day you get a suggestion from Jill, what to do for activity, what kind of diet. If you click this, she'll show you what kind of food you should focus on. So basically through direct interaction between you and Jill, through the app, we are able to drive your results. Where we are today, Lifestyle Jill is getting deployed at Memorial Healthcare. That's one of our biggest customers now. We are also working with Elevance Health in the predictive analytics study that I mentioned, Arcos in Arizona, and our primary focus is right now in Florida. In Florida, we are putting a team together and we are going after quite a few health plans and health system, basically building the pipe up. So let me stop there and answer any questions.
This is fantastic, Chris. And it just looks better and better every time we get together with you and we see how the product is coming together. It's just wonderful. So congratulations to you and your team. And thank you again for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing bigger and better things as well in the future. Take care.
Thank you, Stan. Take care.
And thank you to our HitLab audience. Again, you guys have been phenomenal. Great questions on LinkedIn, on the chat. And looking forward to seeing your ideas come through in the ecosystem. Let us know if you have any technologies, any leaders, anyone you want to profile, health systems, or any topics you want covered as well. And we will see you all again on, not even going to believe this, but we will see you on October 31st, the last Thursday of October, for the Halloween edition of the HitLab Symposium. Take care, everybody. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye-bye.